lower by 6.5 points. Straight ahead, the latest world and national news. This is Bloomberg. At 6:07 on Wall Street, John Tucker is here with a check of what's going on around the world. Good morning, John.
Yeah, good morning, Nathan. An impeachment hearing is scheduled for today on Capitol Hill. Evidence against President Trump will be presented by the House Intelligence and Judiciary Committees. On NBC's Meet the Press, the House Judiciary Chairman, Jerry Nadler, said they'll bring articles of impeachment before the committee at some point later in the week.
There is overwhelming evidence, uncontested by the Republicans, that the president put himself above the country, that the president sought foreign assistance in elections, sought to cover it up.
On CNN's State of the Union, Nadler said Trump may try to rig the 2020 vote. On ABC's This Week program, Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida told host George Stephanopoulos the Democrats hurt their case when they keep moving the goalposts to fit their narrative.
But what is so dizzying, George, is the evolving standard for impeachment from Democrats.
House investigators today give their closing summations in the Democrats' case against the president. The FBI presumes a Florida attack by a Saudi Air Force officer that left 3 U.S. sailors dead was an act of terrorism, and Republican lawmakers urged a suspension of trading from foreign fighters in the U.S. Ron DeSantis is the governor of Florida.
You know, for us to be bringing in these foreign nationals, you have to take precautions to protect the country.
As criticism mounted about the incident, including President Trump's rapid defense of the Saudi royal family, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman called President Trump on Sunday to express his condolences. Leaders of the House and Senate health committees announced they've reached a deal on a package of health care legislation, including measures to tackle surprise medical billing. The Democratic and Republicans said in a statement, they'd reached agreement on legislation to end surprise bills and raise the age to buy tobacco products to 21, as well as extend funding for federal health programs like community health centers. And Carol Spinney, who gave Big Bird his warmth and Oscar the Grouch his growl for nearly 50 years on Sesame Street, died Sunday at the age of 85 at his home in Connecticut. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm John Tucker, and this is Bloomberg. Nathan.
All right, John, thanks. 6:09 on Wall Street. Time for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update. Here's John's Stash Hour.
Nathan, Jets and Dolphins at MetLife, two teams not exactly going anywhere, but it was a game the Jets desperately wanted to avoid the embarrassment of losing twice to Miami. Their coach Adam Gase didn't want to lose twice to the team that fired him a year ago. Jets led most of the way, fell behind with a minute and a half to go, and then won it 22-21 on a last play Sam Ficken field goal. The game-winning drive included a 38-yard completion on the first play. Then Sam Darnold got sacked. Then a play where pass interference was not called, but was after video review. The recap from Darnold.
Yeah, I think for us it was just really good for Vincent, first of all, to make that play for us. It was huge. It was a really good drive, and then I shouldn't be taking sacks in 2 minutes, especially when we don't have timeouts, so that was bad by me. But our guys, like they did all game, they were resilient, and we just kept pushing and found Ty there for the check down. And Sam obviously did a great job kicking the ball.
Elsewhere, Kansas City won at New England 23-16. So the Patriots have lost to all of the other AFC first-place teams. 9th straight win for Baltimore, 24-17 at Buffalo. The game of the day, if not the season. San Francisco won at New Orleans, a battle of NFC first-place teams, 48-46. Last night, the Rams took Seattle 28-12. Tonight in Philadelphia, Giants try to end an 8-game losing streak. All eyes on Eli Manning, back in the job he had for 16 years, starting quarterback in for the injured Daniel Jones. Impressive win for the Rangers, kicking off a 4-game West Coast trip, 5-0 at Vegas, 38 saves for Alexander Gordiev at Barclays. The Nets beat the Nuggets 105-102. With the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, I'm John Stashauer. Nathan?
All right, John, thanks. In other sports news, Russia is being banned from the Olympics again. The World Anti-Doping Agency is imposing a 4-year ban on Russia's national team after officials in Moscow were accused of fabricating evidence to cover up the use of banned substances by the country's athletes. This ban would cover the Summer Games coming up next year and the next Winter Games in 2022. Russia has 21 days to appeal the decision. S&P futures lower by 2 points now. Dow futures down 17. NASDAQ futures a loss of 7 points right now. You're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak.
The lifeblood of tech startups isn't just money. It's executive and technical skills. The kind of skills that companies need to build real products. And the skills that venture capitalist Chris Sugden of Edison Partners sees in the graduates that are coming out of New Jersey Institute of Technology.
The amazing thing about NJIT is their graduates, they have multiple offers on average, not just one. They're coming out with real skill sets that are immediately hireable and available to them. I think we see an understanding by the faculty and administration at NJIT that we've got to train and educate the whole student, not just their, one side of their brain. And I do think that's sort of part of the DNA today. There's practical and there's sort of academia, and merging those two together and understanding that if we're going to have our young people go get great jobs and have great successful careers, they've got to have both sides of their brain activated. And I think we see that with NJIT.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Rich is just a really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich, no. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Sometimes in business, you have to take risks, but trading across borders and currencies shouldn't be one of them. With Western Union Business Solutions, we can help you manage the risk of doing business internationally. Our valuable experience, expert knowledge, and extensive global network makes us the ideal trusted partner for your business. And with our customer-focused support team, you'll receive a dedicated solution and personalized service. Visit westernunionbusiness.com. Western Union Business Solutions, a global financial network you can trust.
This is someone making an online booking at Ford.co.uk using the words Ford20 so they can service their Ford for £20 less. And this is someone who didn't get their Ford serviced. You see, at Ford, we use Ford genuine parts and Ford trained technicians. Plus, if you quote Ford20 when you book with us online, you can receive £20 off. Book now at Ford.co.uk or visit your local participating dealer. Ford service. No one knows your Ford better.
Retail customers only. At participating Ford dealers. Cannot be used with other promotions. T's and C's apply. Search Ford service for more information.
Tonight, it's West Ham v Arsenal in a huge London derby. And with Now TV, you can watch all the action live for a one-off payment of just $9.99. Hold on, they're checking with VAR.
That's confirmed. It's $9.99.
What a game changer. So, to only pay for the games that matter to you, grab a Now TV Sky Sports Day Pass. Search Now TV Sports. 18 plus, content streamed via internet. Full terms apply.
This week at Tesco, buy 2 items from our chilled party food range, like tempura prawns or mozzarella sticks, and get a third one free. So for every 2 people you invite, you can ask another for free. But who? Linda from Accounts or Julio from Magaluf 2010? Tesco, delivering Christmas for 100 years. Cheapest item free, selected stores while stocks last, ends 1st of January.
Conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Tom McKenzie.
Joining us is Higher Castle's Asset Management Managing Partner and Co-CIO, Ziming Huang. It's been a good year for you. The Shanghai Composite is essentially flat since May. So where have most of your gains come from? Have they come from mainland? Have they come from ADRs? Or have they come from the H shares that you also invest in?
If you compare to the index, of course, it comes from single stocks. I would say majority of them comes from a couple names. One of them is industrial names and a couple consumer names in either A share and ADR. And I would say none of them comes from Hong Kong, unfortunately, because Hong Kong underperformed the market since the summer because of the chaos there.
Are you taking money off the table as we get closer potentially to a trade deal? Or do you want to be putting more money to work at this point?
If we see a trade deal, then we probably want to sell a little bit because the easing expectation will diminish. But then we think we are bullish into next year overall, especially for first half. There are a couple elements that are overlooked by the markets. We think the strength of the manufacturing PMI and the stability of China property data were underappreciated by the market.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. European stocks, they're drifting, and U.S. stock index futures also that'll change to lower. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures, they're down 3 points now. Dow futures down 26, NASDAQ futures down 10, and the DAX in Germany's down 0.1%. 10-year Treasury up 5/30 seconds, yield 1.81%, yield on the 2-year 1.60%. NYMEX crude oil's down 1% or 58 cents at $58.62 a barrel. COMEX gold up 0.2% or $2.70 at $14.6780 an ounce. The euro 1.1074 against the dollar. The yen 108.47. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's John Tucker with more on what's going on around the world. John.
Good morning, Karen. House Judiciary Chairman Gerald Nadler says his panel is on track to decide what charges will be brought against the president, setting up an historic vote on impeachment of the full House. Republican lawmakers say the Pentagon should temporarily suspend training for foreign fighters in the U.S. after the Florida attack by a Saudi Air Force officer that left 3 U.S. soldiers dead. And in sports, Jets, 49ers, Ravens win. The Patriots and Redskins lose. Giants and Eli Manning play the Eagles tonight. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm John Tucker. This is Bloomberg. Nathan.
All right, John, thanks. It's coming up to 6:19 on Wall Street. Live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studios, this is Bloomberg Daybreak. Let's get set for the trading day and week ahead. A busy one in store. Joining us from New York, Joe Weisenthal, head of the Americas News Desk for Bloomberg News. In London, we're joined by news director David Merritt, and in Beijing, managing editor Emma O'Brien joins us as she takes some time away from staring at the countdown clock toward the next round of potential tariffs on Chinese goods. Emma.
We are heading down to the wire on Trump's Phase 1 trade deal. He's long said he wants it done and dusted by this Sunday or more tariffs will come. But it's hard to tell where we're at. U.S. bills in recent weeks supporting the Hong Kong protesters, condemning China's actions in the Xinjiang region. They've all definitely muddied the waters. That said, latest intel from our sources indicates the two sides are inching toward a deal with the focus on how to guarantee China's purchases of U.S. agricultural goods and exactly which duties to roll back.
Before that Sunday deadline, David Merritt, we have a Thursday vote in the UK, and if you look at the currency markets, it seems like traders think this is the Tories' election to lose.
That's right. Yes, just 3 days of campaigning to go, and the market certainly, as you say, pricing in a Boris Johnson victory. They're sort of steadily around an average of about 10% ahead in the polls of Jeremy Corbyn's Labour. But I would just caution that it wouldn't take just a few points of slippage in that lead, and we are back in hung parliament territory and more uncertainty. But as we are standing now, that's the way things are looking like. We'll know much more Thursday night. 10 o'clock the polls close. We get an instant exit poll. That's normally pretty on the money, and we should then know where we're heading, certainly by Friday morning. Are we going to get a Johnson majority? That means Brexit almost certainly delivered by the end of January, or potentially a hung parliament which could even deliver Jeremy Corbyn into Downing Street, and then many more months of delay and possibly another referendum on Europe later into next year.
All right, before Election Day in the UK, Joe Weisenthal, we've got the final Federal Reserve decision day of 2019 on Wednesday, and I guess the question for investors is going to be how much the Fed has to say about next year.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, if you look at market pricing, the basic perception is that the Fed can go on vacation for a while. The economy is perceived as being good enough that there's no cuts, but that the bar to hikes is very high, but with it being an election year and with previous comments from Powell. So we'll see if they say anything that can get the market off that view.
What are you expecting the European Central Bank to say this week, David Barrett, with Christine Lagarde now at the helm?
That's right. Yes, it's her debut performance for a council meeting, and then crucially the press conference afterwards. Again, we're not expecting any big moves by the European Central Bank. Got a slightly different problem they're dealing with the Fed. Sluggish growth, Germany near recession, a lot of criticism about the negative rate regime in Europe. Banks are hurting. Everyone says it has lots of unintended consequences. So will she address that? People really looking to see what sort of style she's going to bring. I say this is her first performance at this ECB press conference, picking up clues as to what sort of leadership she might have at the ECB over the coming years.
Emma O'Brien in Beijing, back to you with some more disappointing economic data out of China, including another decline in auto sales.
That's right. We're most definitely seeing signs of peak car in the world's biggest auto market. Sales down 4.2% in November. That's actually the 17th slump in 18 months. The slowing economy, trade war, a pullback in subsidies for electric vehicles, all of these have turned China from a sure bet for the world's biggest automakers into a very uncertain one. You've got some of them really doubling down here, which is pretty concerning when you look at this sales data. Volkswagen rolling out a full EV lineup in China in 2020. Tesla, of course, opening its first gigafactory outside the US near Shanghai, and others, including Toyota, also making big investments.
Joe Weisenthal, back to you. There's a new report out on the overnight repo crunch from earlier this year, suggesting the market may need more than just temporary solutions here.
Yeah, that's right. There are some real structural issues identified in a new report out from the Bank for International Settlements about what caused the repo market to blow up. But essentially one aspect is hedge funds' use of repo to take levered positions on treasuries. Another aspect is the sort of wind down, of course, of the balance sheet and the heavy holdings of treasuries by banks. So it's solvable, but there are all kinds of very interesting structural issues going on and how the market has evolved really post the balance sheet wind down that make the central bank's life tricky.
And finally, David Merritt, the world's biggest publicly traded company, actually starts trading this week. It'll be interesting to see whether it holds up its valuation.
That's right. We know that valuation for Aramco, Saudi Aramco, was cut from what the government there really wanted, $2 trillion valuation. It came down a lot. But they did sell $25.6 billion of shares at the top of the range they were looking at. They had orders for $119 billion. So, all eyes on Wednesday. Will that share price hold up? All the signs are saying that it will. They've got a strong amount of domestic support. Of course, it's just being owned by Saudi investors at this point. So we'll be tracking that at the open on Wednesday.
Bloomberg European News Director David Merritt with us from London. Also thanks to Bloomberg Managing Editor Emma O'Brien in Beijing and the head of the Americas News Desk for Bloomberg News, Joe Weisenthal, with us from New York this morning. Futures pointing to a lower open. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. T-Mobile will be in a federal courtroom in Manhattan today defending its planned acquisition of Sprint. Several states have lined up to block the deal. They say the $26.5 billion merger will mean higher prices for consumers. More U.S. car buyers are falling seriously behind on their loans. Experian says owners delinquent by 90 days or more rose to around 4.7% from 4.3% a year ago. The trend comes as the average monthly payment on a new car or truck remained near a record $550 a month. We'll get earnings today from Toll Brothers and the online pet supply retailer Chewy. Later this week, we also hear from Broadcom, Adobe, and Oracle, and investors are waiting for any more progress toward a U.S.-China trade deal. In the meantime, futures slightly lower, Dow futures down 8, and crude oil is down 1% at $58.66 a barrel. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Ah, Christmas, a time for sharing gifts and laughter, and photos and videos. Make the most of it with a SIM-only deal packed with data from Tesco Mobile. Like a 10-gig SIM for just £13 a month. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile today. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 29th of December. 12-month contract and unlocked 4G-enabled phone required. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Sometimes in business, you have to take risks, but trading across borders and currencies shouldn't be one of them. With Western Union Business Solutions, we can help you manage the risk of doing business internationally. Our valuable experience, expert knowledge, and extensive global network makes us the ideal trusted partner for your business. And with our customer-focused support team, you'll receive a dedicated solution and personalized service. Visit westernunionbusiness.com. Western Union Business Solutions, a global financial network you can trust.
I used to be a bit of a rubbish sleeper. I'd toss and turn all night, and somehow I could never find the comfy bit of the mattress. It was a proper nightmare. That's what brought me here, testing mattresses in the Which Test Lab. We use a custom-made barrel rolling machine to simulate a decade's worth of use. And the mattresses that perform best are the only ones we recommend for your bedroom.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Ah, Christmas, a time for celebrating, unwrapping, and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6S with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Forget the cheese, basket, and socks this holiday season and get the ones you love and even the ones you just kind of like. A subscription to TuneIn Premium. With TuneIn Premium, you'll be giving them the gift they can enjoy all year long. Featuring live NFL, NBA, NHL, and MLB games, commercial-free music, and even podcasts. TuneIn Premium brings the best in audio to you. This year, we're making Santa's job a whole lot easier. So forget the stocking. Stuff their phone with TuneIn Premium. Search Premium to upgrade today.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Casting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
6:30 on Wall Street. Good morning. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow. We are just about 3 hours away from the opening of U.S. trading. Let's get you up to date on the news you need to know at this hour. Stocks are little changed to lower to kick off the trading week, a week which sees policy decisions from the Fed and ECB, an election in the U.K., and a U.S.-China tariff deadline. Meanwhile, the trade war is hurting China at a time when global demand is already weak. Bloomberg Daybreak Asia anchor Brian Curtis has details from Hong Kong.
Total exports in November dropped 1.1% from a year ago. Shipments to the United States plunged 23%. It was the worst result for exports to America since February and the 12th straight monthly decline. Overall, shipments had been expected to rise 0.8% ahead of Christmas. These 18 months of tit-for-tat tariffs have damaged both economies. Chinese companies and American farmers are selling less to the other side. In Hong Kong, Brian Curtis, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Thank you, Brian. Meanwhile, car sales in China continued to decline in November. Vehicle sales fell 4.2% from a year earlier. That makes 17 declines in the past 18 months, and all but ensures a second annual drop for the world's second biggest market.
In Japan, the economy expanded in the third quarter at a much faster pace than initially reported. Japanese GDP rose at an annual rate of 1.8% compared to an initial estimate of just 0.2%.
We have a new ominous report from the Bank for International Settlements. It says September's turmoil in the U.S. repo market suggests a structural problem, not just a temporary hiccup. Here with more on that is Bloomberg's Denise Pellegrini.
The BIS says big banks and hedge funds are responsible for the September disruption, and it says the big four U.S. banks most active in the market hold more liquid assets in treasuries now relative to what they park at the Fed, and that makes them, the BIS says, less nimble than they used to be. On top of that, the BIS says hedge funds are increasingly using the repo market to finance investments, putting additional strain on liquidity. Denise Pellegrini, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Denise, thank you. And in deal news, French pharma giant Sanofi has agreed to buy Synthorx for $2.5 billion. That's almost triple the California biotech company's market value. Futures this morning are little change to lower. S&P futures down 3 points. Dow futures down 22. NASDAQ futures down 8. The DAX in Germany down about 0.2%. It's been extending its declines. The 10-year Treasury up 4/32, yield 1.82%, and the yield on the 2-year 1.60%. NYMEX crude oil is down 0.9% or 53 cents at $58.67 a barrel, and COMEX gold is up about 0.2% or $2.30 at $14.67.40 an ounce. And straight ahead, we have the latest world and national news, and this is Bloomberg.
Thanks, Karen. It's 6:33 on Wall Street, and John Tucker has more on what's going on around the world. Good morning, John.
Nathan, good morning. House investigators give their closing summations today in the Democrats' case against President Trump. They're debating how far they want to go in drafting articles of impeachment. Judiciary Chairman Gerald Nadler said Sunday his panel is on track to decide what charges will be brought against the president.
There'll be a lot of consultations, I assume, between members of the committee, with House leadership, with members of the House, and we'll have to make those decisions. So we'll bring articles of impeachment, presumably before the committee at some point later in the week.
This will set up an historic vote on impeachment in the full House before Congress leaves for a scheduled holiday break on December 20th. Even as he faces impeachment over Ukraine, federal lawsuits claiming that President Trump has unconstitutionally enriched himself continue to dog him. Now, 2 of the suits have reached a critical juncture. A pair of U.S. appeals courts this week will consider whether to let the 2 emoluments cases go forward. In Hong Kong this weekend, the city saw its biggest rally in months. Details from Bloomberg's Ian Marlowe in Hong Kong.
Hong Kong pro-democracy forces had a huge show of force on Sunday with one of the largest marches since protests began 6 months ago. Roughly 800,000 people were estimated to have participated in the rally, which flooded Hong Kong's main streets on Sunday afternoon and well into the evening. The huge rally was authorized by police, unlike previous rallies that were banned and turned violent, with the crowds featuring a broad cross-section of Hong Kong society, from parents with young kids to senior citizens. In Hong Kong, Ian Marlowe, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson goes into the final days of the UK's election campaign, returning to his key message that only he can deliver Brexit. The polls show his Conservative Party on course to win a majority, which would mean Parliament voting to leave the European Union by January 31st. Elizabeth Warren on Sunday said she made about $1.9 million working as a bankruptcy lawyer over 3 decades, a disclosure that comes after a request for her to release her tax returns. The documents released Sunday cover her compensation between 1985 and 2009, but don't include tax returns. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm John Tucker. This is Bloomberg. Nathan.
Thank you, John. 6:35 on Wall Street. Time for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update with John Stashour.
Nathan, Jets and Dolphins at MetLife, a game with a whole lot of field goals. Miami kicked 7, the Jets kicked 3, including 1 right at the end.
Out of the hold of Edwards. Clean spot. Kick on the way. It is good! Inside the right upright for Sam Ficken. And on the last play of the game, the Jets pull it out. They win it over Miami, 22-21.
ESPN New York, the call as the Jets make it 4 wins in their last 5 games. They avoid a second loss to the last-place Dolphins. What a game in New Orleans. San Francisco won on a last-second field goal, 48-46. Niners get help last night. Seattle lost to the Rams 28-12. Niners a 1-game division lead. Baltimore sits atop the AFC at 24-17 at Buffalo. The Ravens' 9th straight win. New England right now does not look like a team ready to win another Super Bowl, beaten at home by Kansas City 23-16. Patriots' 21-game home win streak comes to an end. Tonight in Philadelphia, the return of Eli Manning. Hasn't played since week 2, but Daniel Jones has an injured ankle. Giants coach Pat Shurmur asked if Eli will be rusty.
We're going to go play and be aggressive about it and, give him the things that he can do well. Why is rust not a concern? Yeah. What are we going to do about it? Why worry about things that you can't do anything about? I anticipate and expect that he's going to be ready to play.
Giants have lost 8 in a row. It's a big game for the Eagles. They'll be tied for first with a win. The Rangers won 5-0 in Vegas. The Nets beat Denver 105-102. And the Lakers win over Minnesota, 50 points for Anthony Davis. Former Cardinals and Brewers catcher Ted Simmons and the late Union leader Marvin Miller voted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. For the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, I'm John Stashower. Nathan?
Thank you, John. It's 6:37 on Wall Street. And coming up this week, we get a smattering of earnings with 5 companies in the S&P 500 reporting results. Here with more is Bloomberg's Charlie Pellet.
Wall Street analysts have been slashing projections for fourth quarter earnings at a furious pace. But despite anemic earnings, stocks are on course for one of their best years during the bull market, with the S&P 500 index up more than 25% this year. Alicia Levine is chief strategist at BNY Mellon Investment Management.
For 2020, for next year, estimates are still at 9% growth for next year. And the only way that is realistic and credible if there's an end to the trade war and there's more investment in the U.S.
Among the companies scheduled to report earnings this week, Oracle, Costco, and Broadcom. Charlie Pellet, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Charlie, thank you. It is 6:38 on Wall Street.
The following commentary is from Bloomberg Opinion.
The secret to America's low taxes. I'm Justin Fox, a columnist for Bloomberg Opinion. New data show that, thanks to the 2017 tax cuts, U.S. taxes have gone from pretty low relative to other affluent countries to very low, at 24.3% of GDP in 2018. Combined federal, state, and local tax revenue in the U.S. ranked 33rd among the 36 affluent democracies that belong to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. There should be a couple of asterisks next to that ranking, though. One is that the U.S. has a very expensive healthcare system, financed in part by compulsory insurance premiums that aren't counted in the tax data. Another is that the U.S. public sector spends a lot more than it taxes, resulting in by far the biggest government deficit as a share of GDP in the developed world. So current U.S. taxes are low by international standards. Future taxes may be less so. I'm Justin Fox. For more opinion, please go to Bloomberg.com/opinion or OPIN Go on the Bloomberg terminal.
This has been Bloomberg Opinion.
You can hear Bloomberg Opinion commentaries every weekday at this time. Terminal customers can read more at OPIN Go. 6:39 on Wall Street. Time for the Bloomberg Green Report. Here's Joan Doniger.
Something that sounds a little tough to digest will give farmers a chance to become global carbon traders. The dairy and meat industries are under pressure to shrink their climate impact as more people move to plant-based diets. Livestock actually accounts for about 15% of global greenhouse gas emissions, largely because of the way animals digest food. When cows burp, they emit methane, which traps about 25 times more heat than CO2. Now, the Swiss agritech company Mutral has come up with a garlic and citrus feed supplement that actually lowers the amount of greenhouse gases burped out by cows. It's been proven to cut emissions by up to 38%, and the company has tested the feed at a dairy farm in England. British cows will be the first in the world to generate carbon credits. The largest program for voluntary carbon offsets has approved. The first cow credits should be generated next year. I'm Joan Doniger, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, Joan, thank you. Futures, little changed to the downside at the moment. S&P futures are lower by 2 points. Dow futures down 20, NASDAQ futures down 6.5. The DAX in Germany is down 0.1%, CAC in Paris down 0.4%. 10 years up 4.30 seconds, yield 1.82%. 2-year Treasury yield 1.60%. This is Bloomberg.
Hey, y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here.
Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients, and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power Award information, visit jdpower.com/O.
Sometimes in business, you have to take risks, but trading across borders and currencies shouldn't be one of them. With Western Union Business Solutions, we can help you manage the risk of doing business internationally. Our valuable experience, expert knowledge, and extensive global network makes us the ideal trusted partner for your business. And with our customer-focused support team, you'll receive a dedicated solution and personalized service. Visit westernunionbusiness.com. Western Union Business Solutions, a global financial network you can trust.
I used to be a bit of a rubbish sleeper. I'd toss and turn all night, and somehow I could never find the comfy bit of the mattress. It was a proper nightmare. That's what brought me here, testing mattresses in the Which Test Lab. We use a custom-made barrel rolling machine to simulate a decade's worth of use. And the mattresses that perform best are the only ones we recommend for your bedroom.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Coffee shop, cashback, cat flaps, cashback, beanbags, rucksack, hire car, buy a car, flapjack, cashback, dumbbells, cashback, takeaway, holiday to anywhere the sun is at, bum bag, laptop, big match, hatchback, binge watching, paintballing, crab fishing, cashback, anything you want to buy, everywhere you want to go. Guess what? Cashback. Whatever you spend your money on, get money back every time with the American Express Platinum Cashback Everyday Credit Card. Search Amex Cashback. Representative 22.9% APR variable. Minimum annual spend to receive cashback. Terms apply. 18 plus subject to approval.
Christmas. A time for celebrating, unwrapping, and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6S with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
What better way to celebrate the holidays than with a subscription to TuneIn Premium? With a bottomless library of the world's best audio, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Search Premium to upgrade today.
To a network of news and financial information 24 hours a day, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
A volcanic island in New Zealand has erupted while dozens of tourists were exploring its moon-like surface. 5 people known dead, many more missing. The site too dangerous hours later for rescuers to search for the missing. Russia was banned today from next summer's Olympics in Tokyo and World Championships in a range of sports. The World Anti-Doping Agency punishing Russia for manipulating laboratory data. Satellite imagery indicates that North Korea has run a test at one of their long-range weapon sites. Paula Hancock's monitoring that for Seoul, South Korea.
Experts looking at satellite images believe
that it could, in fact, be a rocket engine test, which could help with either a satellite launch or, in fact, just an intercontinental missile.
A Pyongyang official called President Trump heedless and erratic old man. In sports, the Ravens and the Chiefs have playoff berths. On Wall Street, stock futures almost generally unchanged for Friday's high close, very slightly. I'm Michael Toscano.
So, what would you do with $500 a month in your budget? $500. This isn't hypothetical, by the way.
Why all the top-tier experts? Because business is not a magic trick.
Give us a sense of the economic backdrop.
Bloomberg Markets.
Which financial records are...
Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg. The world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. It is 6:47 on Wall Street. This headline crossing the Bloomberg. Merck to buy Arcule for $20 a share in cash. Again, that just crossing the Bloomberg. Futures this morning are lower. We go to the First Word breaking news desk for today's morning call. Here's Bill Maloney. Bill, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Karen. That's right. Modest losses in the futures right now. Dow futures down 16 points. S&P's dropped 2, and NASDAQ futures declined by 4. The U.S. 10-year yield at 1.82%. Gold is up 3, and Shanghai was a little changed overnight, while European markets are posting modest losses this morning. Back in the U.S., nothing to report on the U.S. economic front. And regarding earnings, Thor Industries reported 92 cents on sales of $2.16 billion. In deal news, IFF is said to vie with Kerry for DuPont's $25 billion nutrition division. And in the biotech space, Sanofi bought Synthorex for $2.5 billion. Wrapping things up, Chevron and 3M were both cut to neutral over at Citigroup. Macy's cut to sell at Goldman Sachs, and Tenet was raised to buy over at UBS. Live from the First Breaking News Desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Karen?
All right, Bill, thank you. And to hear live breaking news over your Bloomberg, type squawk on your terminal, SQUAWK. And again, watching Arcule shares this morning, they're up more than 99% in early trading. Merck is up 0.4%. Again, on the headline that Merck is to buy Arcule for $20 a share in cash. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's John Tucker with more on what's going on around the world. John.
Good morning, Karen. The Justice Department's internal watchdog set to dismiss one of the oldest conspiracy theories of Donald Trump's presidency, the accusation the FBI illegally spied on his campaign. The report, expected to be issued today, concludes the FBI was justified in opening an investigation into Trump campaign officials before the 2016 election. House investigators give their closing summations today in the Democrats' case against President Trump. It sets up an historic vote on an impeachment of the full House later this month. And the FBI presumes a Florida attack by a Saudi Air Force officer that left 3 U.S. sailors dead was an act of terrorism. Sports, the Jets, 49ers, and Ravens all win. The Patriots and the Redskins lose. The Giants and Eli Manning play the Eagles tonight. In hockey, the Rangers shut out Vegas. And in basketball, the Nets win and the Wizards lose. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm John Tucker, and this is Bloomberg.
All right, John, thank you. We are live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studios. We're at 6:49 on Wall Street. Time to check what's going on in D.C., where the House Judiciary Committee is preparing for an evidentiary hearing before drawing up possible articles of impeachment against President Trump as soon as this week.
There is overwhelming evidence, uncontested by the Republicans, that the president put himself above the country, that the president sought foreign assistance in elections, sought to cover it up, completely defied participation in the congressional investigation.
Democratic Chairman Gerald Nadler tells NBC's Meet the Press President Trump might try to undermine the next election if they don't act. Republican Senator Ted Cruz was on the same program.
On the evidence, Russia clearly interfered in our election, but here's the game the media is playing. Because Russia interfered, the media pretends nobody else did. Ukraine blatantly interfered in our election.
And President Trump says Rudy Giuliani will report to Congress on what he's found in Ukraine. The president's lawyer was there last week as impeachment progressed on Capitol Hill.
It's not over. I mean, he is using agents to get
improper things done to try and tar his opponent. And Rudy Giuliani, his agent, is in Ukraine meeting with KGB trained people today. This is an ongoing threat to the national security.
It is weird that he's over there, and I'm grateful that very soon after I made those comments on CNN, the president put out a statement that said that Rudy Giuliani does want to come into Congress and explain his role.
Democrat Zoe Lofgren and Republican Matt Gaetz reacting on ABC's This Week. Meantime, the investigation continues into the shooting at Naval Air Station Pensacola. 3 people killed by a trainee from Saudi Arabia. National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien was on CBS's Face the Nation.
To me, it appears to be a terrorist attack. The FBI will have to get into I don't want to prejudge the investigation, but it appears that this may be someone that was radicalized.
And Defense Secretary Mark Esper tells Fox News Sunday,
I asked that we begin a review of what our screening procedures are with regard to foreign nationals coming to the United States.
And that's some of the conversation from the political shows heard every Sunday here on Bloomberg Radio. NBC's Meet the Press at 11 a.m. Wall Street time, Fox News Sunday at noon, ABC's This Week at 1 p.m., and Face the Nation from CBS at 2 o'clock. For more, let's bring in Bloomberg Washington reporter Kathleen Hunter. And we are just a few hours away now, Kate, from what looks like closing arguments in the House impeachment investigation against President Trump.
That's right. And I think what we're going to hear, what we expect to hear, is from the councils, majority and minority councils from both sides of the aisle, and then also from the various committees, Intelligence and Judiciary, that have been looking into the impeachment matter. And so we expect them to lay out, opposing views on whether, the Judiciary Committee should proceed in drafting articles of impeachment. However, the cart has sort of been put before the horse in this case, given that we already know the Judiciary Committee is going to proceed, perhaps as soon as later this week, with drafting those articles.
Yeah, we heard that from House Speaker Nancy Pelosi herself just last week. It does seem like it's a foregone conclusion that we will see articles of impeachment at the end of the week. But I guess the question is whether the focus is just going to be on the Ukraine matter, or whether we could see other potential liabilities against President Trump included in these articles.
Absolutely. So there's a big outstanding question about whether or not to include things related to Special Counsel Robert Mueller's probe, which was focused more on the conduct of the Trump campaign and those around Trump during the 2016 election. And so I think that there's sort of opposing views out there, and it'll be interesting to see where Democrats come down at the end of the day on that.
What to make of the activity we saw from Rudy Giuliani this past week, going back to Ukraine, the center of what Democrats are looking at when it comes to possible impeachment of the president, and potentially adding more evidence, perhaps?
Well, we just heard, a Republican lawmaker who essentially described it as weird or strange that he did that. I would, agree with that assessment. But I think that this is not so surprising, given we know how the Trump administration, the Trump presidency, and those in Trump's orbit operate. And I think that potentially this gives the Trump world a chance to try to go on offense this week when they're facing impeachment charges and talk about, evidence of wrongdoing on the part of the Obama administration that Giuliani is saying that he potentially uncovered in Ukraine. And we know that via, Trump tweets that we've already seen about talking about this as yet submitted report to Congress and the Justice Department about what Rudy Giuliani uncovered in Ukraine last week.
Is there a possibility that we could see Giuliani testifying before House Democrats on what he's found? I mean, Democrats have been loath to put a spotlight on some of the Ukraine stuff that the Republicans have been pushing.
Yeah, I think that this is really sort of a counter-narrative for Republicans. I don't imagine that it's one that Democrats are going to really want to highlight very much, particularly given questions surrounding Giuliani's own conduct.
And it's interesting when you have all this impeachment pressure on President Trump and the White House, when you focus on the economy, the stock market, it seems like a year has really changed things for this president.
It has, and in short, things are actually, headlines of the week aside, things are actually looking up for Trump when it comes to polling and economic data, particularly in some of the key battleground states that are likely to be decisive next year, including Wisconsin, chief among them. I think that also coupled with the fact that we've not seen a great erosion in Trump's support among Republicans as this impeachment inquiry has proceeded. I think for that, those are all very positive signs for Trump. Now, that being said, the election is still, another 10 or 11 months off. And so a lot can change between now and then. But certainly in today's snapshot, Trump is better off than he was a year ago.
What difficulties, if any, does this point to for the still wide field of Democrats as they think about ways to take on the president after the primaries are done?
Well, I think for Democrats, their chief message has always been built around trying to appeal to middle class, and working class voters. I think that was always going to be a key demographic for them. They did not do well among that demographic in 2016. I think that's largely the explanation behind Trump's success then. And so I think the conventional wisdom has been to win in 2020, they're going to need to win back some of those voters. And I think that's harder to do when the economy is showing such positive signs.
In our last few seconds here, do you expect that impeachment is still going to be an issue for the Democrats as we head toward the 2020 race?
I mean, I think it's certainly an issue that energizes the Democratic base, but I think the real question is how independent voters are going to be viewing the issue as we get closer to November of 2020. If Trump is impeached in the House and acquitted in the Senate, certainly his argument's going to be that he's been absolved of any wrongdoing. And so I think how that argument resonates with voters is going to be really, really essential.
Bloomberg Washington reporter Kathleen Hunter, thank you as always. Read more at Bloomberg.com or on the Bloomberg terminal. Follow all the latest on Bloomberg Radio in Washington. Bloomberg 99.1 and 105.7 FM HD2. Karen.
All right, Nathan, thank you. And we continue to watch shares of RQ. They are up more than 99% in early trading. This is after Merck has reached a definitive agreement to buy RQ for $20 a share in cash with an approximate total equity value of $2.7 billion for that deal. And we'll be watching shares of both companies throughout the morning. Futures this morning are lower with S&P futures down 5 points. Now they have been extending their declines. Bloomberg surveillance is straight ahead. Tom Keene is in London, Jonathan Farrow and Lisa Abramowitz in New York. For Nathan Haker, I'm Karen Moscow, and this is Bloomberg.
'Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop. Not on our watch. In real life, you can fill your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols, and OMGs. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Batteries running low. Take the kids to Santa's Grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We hunt in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
Sometimes in business, you have to take risks, but trading across borders and currencies shouldn't be one of them. With Western Union Business Solutions, we can help you manage the risk of doing business internationally. Our valuable experience, expert knowledge, and extensive global network makes us the ideal trusted partner for your business. And with our customer-focused support team, you'll receive a dedicated solution and personalized service. Visit westernunionbusiness.com. Western Union Business Solutions, a global financial network you can trust.
For the independent bookseller who found you that first edition. For the baker who brings the smell of freshly baked bread to your door.
And for the barista who never needs to ask your name.
We've all got a part to play.
Every little tap keeps your high street alive.
And helps your communities thrive.
So if you love where you live, shop small.
Shopping on your local high street can make a big difference. Shop small. Only by American Express.
The financial capital of the world. 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
I think the U.S. is going in for a couple of years of very, very strong growth.
The deficit by early in the next decade will start to become a real problem for the markets.
Finance.
The consumer is really strong right now.
We don't realize how good times are now.
Investment.
The biggest problem that people have in investing in stocks is that they get out of the market.
It's not supposed to be easy. Anyone who finds it easy is stupid.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow on Bloomberg Radio.
For
From New York City for our audience worldwide, good morning, good morning. This is Bloomberg Surveillance. Coming up on the program, wrapping up 2019, counting down to President Trump's December 15th trade deadline. Chair Powell's final rate decision of the year just ahead of President Lagarde's first. And Britain heading to the polls. Johnson's Tories looking to reclaim their majority. From the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio, hello Monday. Here is your Monday morning price action. Equities rolling over by 0.1% on the S&P 500 after squeezing out a week of gains. In the bond market, a whole lot of nothing for you this morning. Treasury yields coming in around about a basis point to 182 on a 10-year, on a 2-year note, unchanged at 161. And in foreign exchange, sterling outperforms cable, firmer by 0.25%. The pound against the dollar, 131.73. Lisa Bravis alongside me here in New York, and what a week ahead we've got for you. A Fed decision this Wednesday, the ECB on Thursday, and then a big trade deadline coming up this Sunday.
Yeah, and of course we have the election, which I know you're going to be getting to in Great Britain. But to me, I think that the real move today is a huge whipsaw in sentiment. Last week it was the melt up. The week before, the melt up, the sort of persistent optimism we'd get a trade deal. Today, it's the opposite. You're seeing someone say there's no upside risks on the horizon. It is weighted to the downside. Everything has changed somehow.
And you've got to throw into the mix the election that you mentioned. It comes up this Thursday. Tom Keene has already made the trip over to London. I'll be joining him in a couple of days. Birthday boy Tom Keene in the city of London ahead of his election day.
I had to.
Just 3 days away. Tom, happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you so much. And of course, I've spent the entire time here. I love the London cabs and asking about the next manager for Arsenal. And John, I have to do research. Birthday tonight. I'm trying to find tickets, West Ham Arsenal. We'll see if I can go to London Stadium this evening.
Can you put out the video that you sent me over the weekend of you in a London cab talking to the driver about Premier League football?
You bring it up. You bring it up, John, but it's really serious. Before we get to Alberto Gallo, the heat, folks, here anecdotally from every walk of life. And John, what I've seen here in the brief time I've been here is the exhaustion over Brexit. Whatever anybody's political persuasion is, that's front and center.
The election front and center this coming Thursday. As I say, a massive week ahead. Fed decision Wednesday, ECB Thursday, British election Thursday. Then we have a trade deadline this coming Sunday as well. December 15th, Tom. Very much in focus for investors worldwide.
No question, December 15th is the key date. I'd also mention in there, John, and you've had real leadership on this, Madame Lagarde, with some real key decisions towards the end of the week. With that, and maybe to migrate away from the politics of the moment, we are thrilled at Queen Victoria Street to bring you Alberto Gallo. He is with Algebris, with Lisa Abramowitz and John Farrow in New York. Alberto, good morning to you. Let me start with an open question, given the news flow John just spoke about. How are you positioned in the year end? Are you in full Gallo vacation mode? Or are you actually trying to find alpha towards the end of the year and into January?
Good morning, Tom, Lisa, John.
Can you get up closer on the mic, please?
Yeah, good morning.
There you go.
So the market has moved from fears of meltdown, as Lisa was saying earlier, in September and October, to hopes of a melt-up. The melt-up has happened. Now we're in a fear of missing out mode. Investors are afraid of missing the gains. There is a consensus about an extension of the tariffs on the 15th. There is some consensus about a soft Brexit. And there's a lot of things that can go wrong. So we're more cautious. We've taken profits on things that we owned during the year. And we're increasingly looking at things that could go wrong and areas of the market which are overvalued.
Right.
I think in the UK, the market underestimates the execution risk of a soft Brexit, even if the Tories win. And also the market underestimates a quick US-China, underestimates the difficulty of making a US-China phase one deal, because also the Trump administration needs a phase one deal to play throughout the next year to use it as a bait into elections.
I want to go to John with his great knowledge on the credit market versus the full faith in credit market. But Alberto, very simply here, are there bubble characteristics in fixed income, as some would suggest we see in equities, because the central banks have imparted that huge urgency to put cash to work?
We are investors in a manipulated market. So if you think about government bonds, definitely yields are too low. Real yields, look at the UK, real yields are very negative. Inflation is at 2.5%, 3%. Yields are below 1% for gilts. So there's hardly value in sovereigns, with a few exceptions like treasuries in the US, Canada, Australia, areas where central banks can still cut. At the other end of the spectrum, if you look at private debt, loan funds, CLOs, you have a similar picture, actually. Investors are trying to get away from mark-to-market, and the size of private debt funds has doubled in the last 1.5 years. So where we operate is in the 5 to 10% of the bond market, which is still trading at positive yields. And we think there's value there, but you have to be very careful, because many of the positive yielding bonds could be zombies, companies that have survived because of an era of low interest rates. And some of them fall down. QE is no longer lifting all boats. This year we had a crisis in Argentina, a crisis in Lebanon. Thomas Cook, very large UK retailer, going into restructuring. Many names in high yield in the US ending up upside down for the same reason.
And John, that destroyed my vacation to the Algarve that I was scheduling for January.
Well, let me tell you, Alberto's going to have one hell of a vacation after bonus season. Alberto Gallo's Algebris Macro Credit Fund is up more than 22% for 2019. Alberto, that's a massive year in fixed income, and more broadly, credit has really delivered on the year in both Europe and in the United States as well. The big question that I'm hearing again and again is whether you should trim some of your winners and rotate some cash into some of the losing areas of the market. What do you do, Alberto, after you've had the year that you've just had?
This year, a lot of the returns, especially in the first half, were driven by duration in the market and by what you would call safe credit. Companies that are not too levered. The really junky companies, the single Bs and the triple Cs, haven't rallied until the last few weeks. Now we're seeing investors that were behind essentially reaching down the capital structure, down the rating quality to buy companies that are over 5 times levered. They don't have equity. Sometimes they're privately owned. They have flat or negative free cash flows, and these are potentially zombies. So we are a bit more cautious when people reach down the barrel of the rating quality. We really need a growth upside for these parts of the market to perform. So we're cautious and we are trimming risk. We're still positive that we're going to potentially have a year-end rally, a January rally, but we are not seeing the cheapness that we saw a year ago. So we're a lot more cautious, and we have dry powder with the political volatility of next year. We think there'll be better entry points.
Yeah, I love the word zombies, by the way. Zombie companies is one of my favorite terms. I will say there was a story in the Financial Times this morning about a number of big bond firms, PIMCO among them, CQS, and Hayfin Capital Management, all raising special opportunity funds that have structures like private equity funds to go into companies, buy up some of this distressed debt that you were just talking about, and actually work with the companies to restructure them. Do you see an opportunity there too?
There is an opportunity, but let's remember distressed funds are out of business mostly because there was no distress in the last 10 years because interest rates were very low. So we need some shocks to the market, and we'll probably have them next year to create these opportunities. For example, one shock could be U.S. elections. If you see a lead by the Democrats, then some sectors like energy or healthcare could be due for a big disruption. Similarly in the UK, depending on who wins elections this week. So there is a lot of sectors which are still, running an old business model. They've survived because of low interest rates, and as soon as the economy shakes up a bit, these companies need to restructure their debt. So there's an opportunity there. Over time, we need a catalyst to make this happen.
Alberto, this has been wonderful, and as John mentions, just what we know with you, with your excellence, it's not once in a lifetime, but that's superb. superb performance this year, far outdistancing so much what we see in fixed income and certainly in the hedge fund world. Mr. Gallo is with Algebris. John?
Absolutely brilliant. We count you down to a lot of things that are happening this week, including a Fed decision and the ECB. The British general election takes place this coming Thursday. But perhaps the biggest near-term risk event in the next week or so is December 15th. The only thing, one of the few things keeping this market together, a certain level of confidence in the president's reaction function, that he won't follow through on this round of tariffs because it brings more risk to the consumer and to corporates. We continue to count you down to that event. It happens this Sunday. Look for updates through the week and reports, of course, right here from Bloomberg. Equity futures grind just a little bit lower. We're down 0.1% on the S&P 500. From New York and London, you are listening to Bloomberg Radio.
For the news, he didn't go to London. It's John Tucker.
I'm stuck here with you guys, which is okay. Pushing ahead with articles of impeachment, the House Judiciary Committee convenes today to formally receive the investigative findings against President Trump. If the Judiciary Committee approves articles by Friday, that would set up a final impeachment vote in the days before Christmas. A New Zealand volcano spewed a massive eruption of ash and steam while dozens of tourists were exploring the island. Still too dangerous hours later for police and rescuers to return there to search for the missing. One death is confirmed. And Alabama's near-total abortion ban will remain blocked by a federal judge. The Attorney General's office there confirmed the state is not appealing that October injunction. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm John Tucker. And Lisa, this is Bloomberg.
Thank you so much,
I'm so
John
glad to
Tucker.
be here with you.
I mean, right? We're
He's
all
lying.
singing. We're
He's
just,
lying.
holding hands singing Kumbaya. It is a weaker tone. 2 markets ahead of the open. We've got a flattening yield curve ahead of a key week of decisions. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
Determination and operational strength are both essential factors for growth in asset management. I'm Steve Meyer, President and Head of SEI's Investment Manager Services Division. We know that disruptive forces create opportunities around the world. If you see potential in change, our industry specialists will maximize SEI's integrated platform of data and risk management, global investment operations, compliance support, and investor services to position your asset management business for success. Come grow with us.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
When Harlequins take on Leicester Tigers, it's always a big game. But this year, it's the big game. Hosted at Twickenham, you can expect fireworks on the field and off it. Pre-kick-off, enjoy music, entertainment and a truly incredible atmosphere. Then watch 2 Gallagher Premiership rugby giants go head-to-head. Tickets from just £17 children, £27 adults. Go to tickets.quins.co.uk or search Big Game 12. Kick-off 4:30 p.m. Saturday 28th of December, Twickenham Stadium.
Sometimes in business, you have to take risks, but trading across borders and currencies shouldn't be one of them. With Western Union Business Solutions, we can help you manage the risk of doing business internationally. Our valuable experience, expert knowledge, and extensive global network makes us the ideal trusted partner for your business. And with our customer-focused support team, you'll receive a dedicated solution and personalized service. Visit westernunionbusiness.com. Western Union Business Solutions, a global financial network you can trust.
We've got something to tell you about the Honda Jazz. We know it looks small, but inside, it's really big. That's why we've created the small but big Jazz event, where you can get 0% APR representative and 5 years complimentary servicing on all grades until the 31st of January. The Honda Jazz, the small car with the big offer. Visit your local dealer to find out more. Honda dealers are credit brokers, not lenders. Finance provided by Honda Finance Europe, authorized and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Terms and conditions apply.
At Asda, we know everyone has their favourite chockies, which is why these great brands are at the very sweet price of just £3 each, including pouches of Toblerone, Celebrations, Quality Street and Roses. Asda, let's make Christmas extra special. Selected stores online subject to availability. Pouches 340 grams to 450 grams.
We can deck the halls, the lounge, the bedrooms, the whole house.
Want to get your grotto glittering? Get to B&Q. We've 20% off all indoor and outdoor Christmas lights, artificial trees, decorations and more. Bring the magic ho-ho-home with B&Q. Offer ends 10th of December. Subject to availability. See DIY.com.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Kathleen Hayes.
We're joined by Wisdom Tree's head of Japan, Jesper Kohl. The statement you made in a very interesting piece you wrote is lauding the Japanese government for taking this big fiscal step that nobody else will take. However, they also put through their consumption tax hike. Every time they've done that, they've slowed down the economy, if not pushed it into recession. Are you giving them a little too much credit? Are they just trying to make sure they don't get in trouble with the consumption tax hike?
It's very interesting, right? You've got structural reform. Japan needs a tax system that collects on indirect taxes, which is the consumption tax. And, that is a systemic change that is required, to ensure future prosperity. So it's the right thing to do. Structurally, you're absolutely right. It does cause these jolts and volatility. But here you've got Prime Minister Abe putting a record fiscal spending package to ensure that the damage is not going to be too long. Look, after the US, Japan is the second best major market, year to date. The fact that you've got this fiscal stimulus coming very fast, very pragmatic, means that expectations for 2020, which is what the market is starting to discount, expectations for 2020 are too low, both for economic growth and, more importantly, for corporate earnings.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. This update brought to you by Stevens Institute of Technology, ranked highest in the New York metro area for online graduate business programs by U.S. News and World Report. A Stevens graduate finance degree will position you for what's next. Stevens.edu/finance. And Bloomberg Daybreak is out on customer terminals, bringing you all the news you need to start your day. Let's get a check of the latest headlines with Hannah George at the Bloomberg Daybreak desk. Good morning, Hannah.
Good morning, Karen. The repo market turmoil in September was fueled by big banks and hedge funds. That's according to the Bank for International Settlements, which suggests there's a structural problem and not just a temporary hiccup. Hong Kong saw its biggest protest in 6 months on Sunday. Hundreds of thousands of people marched to mark Human Rights Day. China's unexpected export drop in November shows tariffs hurting the economy at a time when global demand is already weak. Total exports fell 1.1% year-on-year, and exports to the US were down 23%. And in deal news, French pharma giant Sanofi has agreed to buy Synthorx for $2.5 billion. That's almost triple the California biotech company's market value. For all the news you need to start your day, check out Daybreak on your mobile phone on the Bloomberg Anywhere app. Karen.
All right, Hannah George, thank you. And we're also watching RQL this morning up 101%. Merck said it agreed to buy RQL for $2.7 billion. S&P futures down 2 points. Dow futures down 24. NASDAQ futures down about 7. And the 10-year Treasury up 5/30 seconds, yield 1.81%. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom, John, and Lisa.
Karen, thank you. Thank you very much. For many people, the outlook at the moment is still finely balanced. The U.S. consumer is still very resilient. See payrolls last Friday. The global outlook still just a little bit soft. You can see the Chinese export data. That story told pretty clearly over the weekend. Overall, we haven't totally shaken off these trade jitters. Tuesday's bond market action, a real reminder of that. To weigh in on the outlook on the remainder of the year into 2020, I'm pleased to say that joining us from New York on the phone is Kathy Jones, Charles Schwab Chief Fixed Income Strategist. Good morning to you, Kathy.
Good morning, John.
What are you telling clients going into year end as the happy talk about 2020 is already in full swing?
Yeah, our outlook is that there's some room for rates to move up as we get into 2020, and that's assuming we do get some sort of a trade deal, even if it's just a kick the can down the road kind of thing, where we don't impose increase in tariffs as of next week, or this week, I guess, the decision would have to be made. And then, we're seeing a pretty resilient economy, maybe a little bit of an uptick in inflation expectations, so we could see the 10-year yield getting up to about 2.25 next year.
Why? How? I mean, in other words, is it going to be inflation? Is it going to be real yields? What's this going to be driving the increase?
We think it'll be a little bit of inflation expectation picking up, that the strength in the labor market is exceeding expectations. We have very, very low inflation expectations now. If you look at the five-year forward rate, it's well below 2%. Just a little bit of a pop there could get us up to 2% plus in the 10-year. Again, we're not looking for a huge rise in yields. We're just looking for a return to a recapture of some of the decline in yields that we saw last year.
So what did you make of Friday's price action? We had a blowout payrolls report in America, Kathy, and yields on a 10-year ended the day higher by a couple of basis points at 183, 184. That to me is not a market that's thinking about a better economy translating into higher yields.
That's absolutely true. I think it's muted by the fact that we still have the ongoing trade conflict going on, and nobody really wants to take a position ahead of that. And we also have, even though, the jobs report was strong, the wage gains were still pretty moderate. So there's not this inflation expectation building up from a tight labor market. And there's no prospect that the Fed's going to change policy anytime soon.
Kathy, can you give a narrative to 2019? Is what we saw in the bond market, the incredible rally in duration, really due to decreasing expectations of growth and inflation? Or is this all due to increasing stimulus from central banks? And I'm wondering, you see the Fed expanding its balance sheet by more than $300 billion and the ECB continuing to buy bonds.
Yeah, I think that certainly both factors worked on the market, but I think the ample liquidity and the easing from central banks was the major driver. I mean, we had huge cuts from the Fed. We've had huge cuts from other central banks. We've had increased liquidity. And then on top of that, you have the narrative that the global economy was really much softer than people believed coming into the year. I think when you look back at where we started last year, where we were a year ago in the fourth quarter, things are very much different today than they were then. So we had a lot of room for rates to come down.
So let's look forward to this week when we have the Fed, we've got the ECB, we've got perhaps a little bit more foresight into what their plans are for 2020. If they just stay put, I'm talking about the Fed mainly here, is that going to be enough to keep driving the fixed income rally without, let's say, some positive upside surprise due to trade agreements?
I think you're not going to see the kind of duration rally that we saw this year. I mean, it's almost impossible to get a peak to trough move of 100 basis points or so unless we're going into a global recession. And I don't think we're going into a recession. So I think that being on hold allows, returns to be positive, but more in line with coupon income than with some big gains in duration or a lot more spread tightening from here. So we have a positive outlook for next year in terms of total return, but mostly driven by coupon income, not the factors that drove the market in 2019.
Kathy, I want to wrap up with a question that no doubt we'll be asking all of our guests through this week as we count you down to December 15th and that trade deadline. Big line in the sand. What are you telling clients about it?
Well, we think the most likely outcome is either a delay of additional tariffs and more talk, or some sort of phase one light agreement, simply because it's in everybody's best interest for that to happen. But this is probably the most unpredictable policy factor right now in the U.S.
Kathy Jones, great to catch up with you, Charles Schwab Chief Fixed Income Strategist. And Lisa, that seems to be the take of many investors counting down to December 15th, that the President and this administration left this bunch of imports to the end because these are the last ones they want to go anywhere near. And for that reason, they won't follow through. That's just one of the big views, I think, the consensus call going into Sunday.
Certainly, if those tariffs are implemented, that's the reason why you're seeing nervousness today. A lot of people dismiss that possibility, but now you're actually seeing that come to the fore. And that would cause, many people say, a huge market sell-off. And I think and a big rally potentially in rates.
Big week ahead then, right here on Bloomberg Surveillance, on Bloomberg Radio. Equity futures grinding just a little bit lower, down 2 points on the S&P 500. In the bond market, the 10-year yield coming in a single basis point to 182 on the 10-year. From New York and London, this is Bloomberg Surveillance.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Indianapolis-based trucking giant Celadon has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Court documents show the company with an estimated liabilities of $500 million and as many as 10,000 creditors. Celadon maintains a fleet of thousands of truckers, and the Wall Street Journal says the company is shutting down its operations as of today. T-Mobile heads to a federal courtroom in New York City today to defend its planned acquisition of Sprint against an effort by a bunch of states to block it. The states say the $26.5 billion deal will mean consumers paying higher prices, but T-Mobile argues that by combining with Sprint, it can cut costs and lower prices. More U.S. car buyers are falling seriously behind on their loans. Experian says owners delinquent by 90 days or more rose to around 4.7% from around 4.3% a year ago in the third quarter. Futures slightly lower, Dow futures down 27. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's environment of market volatility, Pershing's Prime Services is well positioned to support the needs of hedge funds and other alternative investment managers. Whether it's customized financing or securities lending solutions, platform access, or business expansion, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and agile enough to meet your evolving demands. Pershing helps to solve the needs of clients by advocating for them, providing unwavering strength, deep supply, and award-winning service that is at the core of everything we do. Find out what sets Pershing's prime brokerage team apart.
Learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers offered by BNY Mellon's Pershing. Visit our website at Pershing.com. Pershing LLC, member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Just because you travel doesn't mean you can't keep your routine. The more obstacles travel puts between us and our well-being, the more we strive to work well. At Westin Hotels and Resorts, we're focused on empowering your well-being. With Westin meetings, you work and feel your best with nutritious snacks and nourishing smoothies that give you the energy you need to power through any meeting. Don't leave your well-being behind. We give you the choice to get up or to rise. Search Westin online to find out more. Westin, let's rise.
Sometimes in business, you have to take risks, but trading across borders and currencies shouldn't be one of them. With Western Union Business Solutions, we can help you manage the risk of doing business internationally. Our valuable experience, expert knowledge, and extensive global network makes us the ideal trusted partner for your business. And with our customer-focused support team, you'll receive a dedicated solution and personalized service. Visit westernunionbusiness.com. Western Union Business Solutions, a global financial network you can trust.
I used to be a bit of a rubbish sleeper. I'd toss and turn all night, and somehow I could never find the comfy bit of the mattress. It was a proper nightmare. That's what brought me here, testing mattresses in the Which Test Lab. We use a custom-made barrel rolling machine to simulate a decade's worth of use. And the mattresses that perform best are the only ones we recommend for your bedroom.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk. Psst. We've got something to tell you about the Honda Jazz. We know it looks small, but inside, it's really big. That's why we've created the small but big Jazz event. where you can get 0% APR representative and 5 years complimentary servicing on all grades until the 31st of January. The Honda Jazz, the small car with the big offer. Visit your local dealer to find out more. Honda dealers are credit brokers, not lenders. Finance provided by Honda Finance Europe, authorized and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Terms and conditions apply.
Christmas. A time for celebrating, unwrapping and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6s with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
What better way to celebrate the holidays than with a subscription to TuneIn Premium? With a bottomless library of the world's best audio, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Search Premium to upgrade today.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
From New York City, this is Bloomberg Surveillance for our audience worldwide. We're live on Bloomberg Radio, 2 hours away from the opening bell. The news you need to know this hour. U.S. equity futures slightly lower. The S&P 500 down by 2 points to kick off a trading week that sees Fed and ECB decisions, an election in the UK, and the US-China tariff deadline. So far, no word on whether the White House will go ahead with a planned tariff hike on Chinese imports set for this Sunday. Meanwhile, data out of the country in China showing the trade war continues to bite. China's exports for November fell 1.1%, while exports to the United States tumbled 23% from a year ago. On the M&A front, Sanofi is speeding up its push into cancer treatments. The French company has agreed to buy Synthorx for $2.5 billion, and International Flavors and Fragrances has emerged as a strong contender to purchase DuPont's nutrition division. Bloomberg News has learned that both IFF and Ireland's Kerry Group are negotiating with DuPont. A few more hours to go on this program and a lot more time to go over some of those stories. In the meantime, let's get you some headlines from elsewhere. Let's say good morning to John Tucker. Good morning, John.
Yeah, John, the impeachment process takes another step today as the House investigators give their closing summations. The Judiciary Committee Chairman, Gerald Nadler, said the panel's on track to decide what charges will be brought against Donald Trump, setting up a full House vote before December 20th. The panel's going to start to publicly compose final versions of articles of impeachment by this Thursday. North Korea remains defiant. It's carried out a test at its satellite launching station that they say will play an important role in changing their strategic status once again. But President Trump tweeted that Kim Jong-un is too smart and has far too much to lose. Everything, actually, if he acts in a hostile way. And Hong Kong saw its biggest protest in 6 months as hundreds of thousands of people marked Human Rights Day. It was the first such event in 4 months to get government approval. Organizers estimated about 800,000 people took part. Global News 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm John Tucker, and this is Bloomberg, Jonathan.
John Tucker, thank you. Sitting in Tom Keene's seat, I might add, as well. John Tucker, thank you.
Who's not here?
It's time for the Bloomberg NPC Sports Report. Here is John Stashower.
Jonathan, Jets and Dolphins at MetLife, two teams not exactly going anywhere, but it was a game the Jets desperately wanted to avoid the embarrassment of losing twice to Miami. Their coach Adam Gase certainly didn't want to lose twice to the team that fired him a year ago. Jets led most of the way, fell behind with a minute and a half to go, and then won it 22-21 on a last-second Sam Ficken field goal. The game-winning drive included a play where pass interference was not called, but then was after video review. Kansas City won at New England 23-16, so the Patriots have lost to all of the other AFC first-place teams. Ninth straight win for Baltimore, 24-17 at Buffalo. The game of the day, if not the season, San Francisco won at New Orleans. Battle of NFC first-place teams 48-46. Last night, the Rams beat Seattle 28-12. Tonight in Philadelphia, the Giants try to end an 8-game losing streak with all eyes on Eli Manning, back in the job he had for 16 years, starting quarterback. He's in for the injured Daniel Jones. Impressive win for the Rangers, kicking off a 4-game West Coast trip, 5-0 at Vegas, 38 saves for Alexander Gordiev at Barclays. The Nets beat the Nuggets 105-102. With the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, I'm John Stashower. Jonathan?
John Stashower, thank you. John there with the sports. You've had the news. Let's get you some price action this Monday morning. A muted move lower on the S&P 500, down around about a point or two on the S&P. In the bond market, Treasury yields coming down a single basis point to 183. And in foreign exchange, the pound outperforms in G10, a stronger pound sterling. This is Bloomberg.
From our world headquarters in New York and from our studios at Queen Victoria Street, London, this is Bloomberg Surveillance. Good morning, everyone. Let's get right to it on a Monday. The Bloomberg NJIT STEM Report brought to you by VentureLink at NJIT, a business accelerator offering the resources and support that tech companies need to thrive. More at njit.edu/entrepreneurship. Here's Nathan Hager.
Good morning, Tom, Jonathan, Lisa. Here's what's making news this morning in science, technology, engineering, and math. If you thought self-driving cars were the next big thing on the road, this guy wants to turn them into rolling wallets. Chris Ballinger has launched a nonprofit that would let drivers make and receive anonymous payments in virtual currency from behind the wheel. Drivers would earn small sums for sharing data on everything from traffic to weather. They'd be debited for use of infrastructure and adding to pollution. Ballinger is a former finance chief at Toyota's Innovation Hub. His new venture is called the Mobility Open Blockchain Initiative. Scientists are getting closer to making artificial flesh feel more like the real thing. A team from Australian National University has come up with a jelly-like substance they claim has the strength and durability of skin, ligaments, and even bone. Other so-called hydrogels can handle mechanical stress, change shape, and even heal themselves. This study in the journal Advanced Materials says this new material may be the first that can do all those things efficiently. And the first results are in from NASA's sun-skimming spacecraft, the Parker Solar Probe. It has shown bursts of energetic particles never seen from so close and switchback-like reversals in the solar magnetic field that one scientist likens to the sun cracking a whip. The Parker probe was launched last year. It has come within 15 million miles of the sun. Over the next 6 years, it'll get as close as 4 million miles. That is very hot. And that is today's Bloomberg NJIT STEM Report. Tom, John, and Lisa.
Very cool. Nathan Hager, thank you so much. 5 things you need to know to start your day. Brought to you by Interactive Brokers. Their margin loans, they start at 3.06%. and decrease for larger loan values. Rates subject to change. Learn more at ibkr.com/compare. Okay, there's all this stuff going on, and John, you nailed it. None of it matters compared to December 15th.
December 15th, that's the deadline for the next round of tariffs to go on the $160 billion or so of Chinese imports that haven't already been slapped around by tariffs from this administration. Tom, I have to say, I had an extensive conversation with Larry Kudlow, National Economic Council Director, on Friday. And I walked away from it with very little clarity on the progress that has been made since October 11th, when the president sat in the Oval Office alongside Vice Premier Liu He, and now.
And, John, don't you think, to your wonderful interview, it's this partition of human rights and trade?
Quite clearly, Congress and the bills that it has passed on Hong Kong and the allegations of human rights abuses within the country on the mainland have made it difficult for this administration to come to an agreement with China. I don't think it's completely derailed the talks. It's quite clear that they continue, but it certainly hasn't helped. I just wonder, what do the Chinese need, and what will the President of the United States concede?
Although this comes with the data that we got over the weekend, which I think is really important, and you talked about it, the import data that unexpectedly fell from the U.S. to China in November. There is a growing feeling that China has more to lose and has been hurt more by these tariffs than the United States, John.
We'll take a look at payrolls, and I think, Tom, that's the story, isn't it? The U.S. growth story is still intact. The U.S. consumer is still very resilient.
Lagarde, a distraction, and all of a sudden it's upon us. She needs to act. John, is there any understanding she can convince Germany towards stimulus?
Well, we're going to have a monetary policy review, aren't we, Tom? And I believe it's the first one of the ECB since 2003. It has been quite a while. I'm fascinated to find out how she's going to lay out the objectives of that monetary policy review, and ultimately how they define their mandate, which is price stability. Do they shift away from that below but close to 2% mark, go towards a band, something north of 2%? I have no idea, but I think that's going to be the focus of the meeting this coming Thursday. Chairman Powell's final decision of the year, President Lagarde's first at the ECB.
I want to skip the election today just because it's Monday. John, we're to the point now where it's not last December. I mean, we're now December 9, and it's just real simple. Q4 last year ain't happening, is it?
Well, just look at the primary market in credit, Tom. High yield last year, no issuance whatsoever in the month of December. Nothing came to market. Credit completely seized up. That's not the story this time around.
Well, we have to frame this in stimulus because that's really what it is. Last December, we saw the Federal Reserve cut rates. A lot of people thought that was premature. Now we're seeing the Federal Reserve adding stimulus through their permanent or temporary permanent repo facilities that they have going on. Meanwhile, the ECB has been buying up 25% of the corporate debt market. So you have a rally on all sides, and it really is on the heels of central bank stimulus.
Yeah. One final thing here, John, as you know, I don't take limos in London. It is the best cab service in the world.
Well done.
No, it's serious. I mean, the cab service here is to die for with their new electronic cabs, which are like getting in the Bentley that I take to work every morning. And John, it's basically Arsenal fans furious about the collapse of the Arsenal franchise, but across all, including one cab driver who's all tots. Boy, do they hate what the game has become. What has English Premier League football become?
Who's got the richest owner? Basically, that's what it's come down to, Tom. Who's got the most money to spend in the transfer window, whether it's in the summer or the winter? And that's often been Manchester City. But that's not the only story. I think Liverpool have proved that you can manage the books, that you can sell players for a lot of money, buy players for a lot of money, and still compete. And I think Spurs, to some degree, had done that over the years too. Arsenal had been that story about financial discipline over the last several years. Now they're struggling to perform, Tom. They need to spend some money. They need to find a new coach. And please, 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 put out the video of you in a London cab calling Spurs the Tots and your driver not even correcting you. And you sound like the stereotypical American who doesn't know what he's talking about, shouting the Tots. The Tots.
What?
The Tots. Please, please, please put out that video. From New York and London, you are listening to Bloomberg Surveillance on Bloomberg Radio.
The lifeblood of tech startups isn't just money. It's executive and technical skills. The kind of skills that companies need to build real products. And the skills that venture capitalist Chris Sugden of Edison Partners sees in the graduates that are coming out of New Jersey Institute of Technology.
The amazing thing about NJIT is their graduates, they have multiple offers on average, not just one. They're coming out with real skill sets that are immediately hireable and available to them. I think we see an understanding by the faculty and administration at NJIT that we've got to train and educate the whole student, not just their, one side of their brain. And I do think that's sort of part of the DNA today. There's practical and there's sort of academia, and merging those two together and understanding that if we're going to have our young people go get great jobs and have great successful careers, they've got to have both sides of their brain activated. And I think we see that with NJIT.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Rich is just a really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich, no. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
With the Bloomberg Business of Sports Report.
Sometimes in business, you have to take risks, but trading across borders and currencies shouldn't be one of them. With Western Union Business Solutions, we can help you manage the risk of doing business internationally. Our valuable experience, expert knowledge, and extensive global network makes us the ideal trusted partner for your business. And with our customer-focused support team, you'll receive a dedicated solution and personalized service. Visit westernunionbusiness.com. Western Union Business Solutions, a global financial network you can trust.
I'm Ben. I used to be homeless. I'd sleep in the train station, stuff newspapers in my clothes to keep warm. Sometimes I thought I wouldn't wake up. No one should have to live like this.
The Crisis Christmas Centre was a safe place. We got hot meals, health checks and support. In the new year, they helped me find work and a home. This Christmas, you can reserve a place for someone who's homeless for just £28.87. Go to crisis.org.uk today and help someone like me take their first steps out of homelessness. Thank you.
At Asda, we know everyone has their favourite Chuckies, which is why these great brands are at the very sweet price of just £3 each, including pouches of Toblerone, Celebrations, Quality Street and Roses. Asda, let's make Christmas extra special. Selected stores online subject to availability. Pouches 340 grams to 450 grams.
Coffee shop, cashback, cat flaps, cashback, beanbags, rucksack, hire car, buy a car, flapjack, cashback, dumbbells, cashback, takeaway, holiday to anywhere the sun is at, bum bag, laptop, big match, hatchback, binge watching, paintballing, crab fishing, cashback, anything you want to buy, everywhere you want to go. Guess what? Cashback. Whatever you spend your money on, get money back every time with the American Express Platinum Cashback Everyday Credit Card. Search Amex Cashback. Representative 22.9% APR variable. Minimum annual spend to receive cashback. Terms apply. 18 plus subject to approval.
Christmas. A time for celebrating, unwrapping and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6S with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
What better way to celebrate the holidays than with a subscription to TuneIn Premium? With a bottomless library of the world's best audio, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Search Premium to upgrade today.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
5 people known dead by New Zealand as a volcano erupts off North Island. Rescuers saying the island is too dangerous to look for additional survivors. New Zealand Police Deputy Commissioner John Timms.
We believe a number of these tourists have come from the Ovation of the Seas cruise ship. We cannot confirm nationalities of these people involved.
The race of impeachment is speeding up on Capitol today, with the House Judiciary taking action on the investigation from the Intelligence Committee. Suzanne Alvo is on Capitol Hill.
The evidence presented at this hearing provide the framework for possible articles of impeachment, which could come by the end of the week.
Russia banned by the World Doping Association from the next Olympic tampering with drug tests. The Kansas City Chiefs clinching the AFC West, beating the Patriots 20-16. The Baltimore Ravens wrapping up a playoff berth, topping the Buffalo Bills 24-17. Stock futures are down slightly from base high close. I'm Michael Toscano.
This is a crucial announcement. Nancy Pelosi wants to steamroll impeachment. Polls show support for it is dropping. Now you can vote in Newsmax's poll asking President Trump to be impeached. Just text word
deep understanding in record time.
$2 billion, not exactly what they were going for.
They're going to be profitable.
Bloomberg Business Week, weekday afternoons at 2 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. This update brought to you by IBKR and CME Group. The new micro E-mini futures contracts are available at IBKR at the lowest commissions. Learn more at ibkr.com/CME Mini. Merck said to have agreed to buy Arcule for $2.7 billion, adding to a recent spate of deals in which big drug makers have paid significant premiums to increase their focus on cancer treatments. Arcule shares are up 101% in early trading. U.S. stock index futures, meanwhile, are little changed to lower. European shares are moving lower as investors prepare for a week brimming with potential catalysts, from central bank meetings to the looming U.S.-China tariff deadline. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures down about 2 points. Dow futures down 19. NASDAQ futures down 6. The DAX in Germany's down 0.2%. 10-year Treasury up 3/32, yield 1.82%. The yield on the 2-year 1.61%. NYMEX crude oil is down 1% or 59 cents at 58.61 a barrel. COMEX gold up 0.25% or $3.60 at 14.6880 an ounce. The euro 1.1077 against the dollar. British pound 1.3161 and the yen at 108.46. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom, John, and Lisa.
Karen, thank you very much. Let's pick it up with the commodity market, shall we? As Karen suggested, crude is lower, down by around about 1 full percentage point on WTI to $58.60. Brent, $63 and around about 80 cents. And one of the best guests we could possibly get on this program to break down the oil market, Jeff Curry, joining us in New York, Goldman Sachs International Global Head of Commodities Research. Good morning to you, Jeff.
Good morning.
Before we get into the commodity market, I just want to get my hands around this December 15th trade deadline and what you guys are telling clients at the moment about it. How are you characterizing it? Is it a line in the sand? Is it a firm deadline? Just how much risk is around that date?
Well, in terms of thinking about our space, the impact is relatively limited. It really impacts the agriculture markets to the most extensive extent. There's a lot of noise right now whether or not this is going to lead to improvement in soy demand. But I think the key point there is that you have structural issues going on, and the trade war is exacerbating these structural issues. It's not so much the cause. Let's take, for example, let's say if they were to increase the demand for soybeans, Asian swine flu has taken out the demand because there's no more hogs who actually consume the soybeans. That's more of a structural problem. You look across the commodity space, it's much more structural issues that are plaguing it.
Which, and sort of embedded in that question is a supply-demand dynamic, right? And that's a demand side, a question where, in other words, if you get an amping up of the trade wars, that potentially lowers demand. Is that the right side of the equation to be looking at in terms of oil prices, or should we be looking more at the supply side?
Much more at the supply side. And what we're seeing is a substantial drop-off in CapEx. And again, I'm going to argue that's much more structural than being driven by the trade war.
With shale players or big?
With shale players in particular. You look at the rig counts in the U.S., they've been in a steady decline since December of last year. That reflects, one, is that these companies still have structural problems, poor returns, too much debt. But also you think about the trade war exacerbated. The other big factor that's coming into play is ESG investing. We estimate that in 2020, $45 trillion of assets under management will integrate ESG strategies into the portfolio. What's the two lowest hanging fruit? Fossil fuels and metals and mining.
How can fossil fuels be within ESG? They've tried to manage the social message. How do they actually manage a strategic plan to be ESG sensitive 5 or 10 years from now?
Well, you look at the big oils in Europe, they've basically reinvented themselves as big energy, incorporating renewables, power, and other more sustainable energy sources. Biofuels are added into that mix. So they're doing that in a way to be able to attract that capital back into the sector. But when you look at the shale players in particular, they don't have that kind of optionality. I'm not going to blame it all on ESG. Shale players, too much leverage, bad returns, right, and not a great future.
Jeff, you taught microeconomics at Chicago, which is an immense honor and also really rigorous as well. Give us the rigorous single point microeconomics of the oil price that Saudi Arabia needs. What's their best oil price right now?
Well, in terms of thinking about what they can control and what they can't control, they can control the shape of the forward curve. They cannot control the price level. And the agreement they came to on Friday really exemplified that understanding. Because what they did is they did a much deeper but sharper, shorter term cut, which is telling you that they're going to deal with that near-term surplus. They even went as far as to create a threat to any cheaters so that it's least successful. But the third and most important aspect of that cut is they didn't offer an extension and they didn't talk about the future. Oil is a spot asset. It's not an anticipatory asset like financial markets. So having a focus on forward guidance is really not necessary. Focusing on cleaning up the front end is really important. And that's what they did, which increases the backwardation. And we raised our price target to $63 a barrel on Brent from $60, really driven by that backwardation.
Well, let's talk about that threat from the Saudis. Walk us through that threat, Jeff, and what do you think that threat is credible?
Well, when you look at who was cheating, it was Iraq, Russia, Nigeria, and Kurdistan. And what we've seen so far for the month of November, both Iraq and Russia have got their numbers back down in line with their quotas. But I think it's also a broader threat to the rest of the peripheral of OPEC that, hey, they do have the capacity and they're willing to do it as we go forward, and that their ability to manage the front end, because they've actually been the leaders in terms of cutting back on the front end. They're running 400,000 barrels a day below their quota. I think, in terms of the outlook going forward, because it's not a long-term commitment here, it's like, hey, let's balance these near-term surpluses. It becomes much more to create a credible threat.
You live and breathe this market. I don't. So just naively, I'll say from my perspective, from the outside looking in, I was surprised about the absence of a conversation around Saudi Aramco in Vienna, Austria at the OPEC meeting. Can you really draw a distinction between a Saudi Arabia that joins OPEC Plus to manage an oil price and a Saudi Arabia that needs to manage the price of its crown jewels listed in Riyadh?
Yes. Look at what oil equities have done since 2015. Do you realize oil equities on a level basis are lower today than what they were in the troughs of 15 and 16? Oil price is, 63. The oil price was 26 then. I tell this to our equity analysts. Does the oil price really matter? Yeah, it does in a long-term sense. And I think this goes back to my what did the OPEC Plus members do this last on Friday? They separated that long-term view from the short-term view. Oil price is a spot asset. Equities are an anticipatory asset. What they did on Friday was not going to change those expectations on forward oil prices. However, it could rebalance the market and help near-term cash flows. I absolutely agree. You need to disconnect the two. And if the markets aren't a testament to the fact that oil price can do what it wants and the equities can do it. Another thing I can point out, equities do not have an arbitrage condition. Oil prices do. They're arbitrage to the real supply and demand today. Equities can do whatever they want based upon expectations. That's a whole different discussion.
So, Jeff, you were just saying that Brent, you're expecting it to go to $63. It's currently $56.57. Where do you see WTI going? It's $58.51 right now.
Almost right on where it's trading right now, basically at 58. But that's not the story in oil. The story in oil is the shape of the forward curve. It's the returns where we expect to see 20% returns in being long oil with this thing trading flat over the rest of the year.
One thing that I want to follow up on when you say that you're expecting CapEx to decline over in the shale patch, I'm wondering, do you expect the fate of those companies to improve? We've seen the bankruptcies really increase. Do you think that will just continue, or do you think that we're starting to see a bottom?
Well, I think when you look at what has to happen in that sector, you need to see consolidation. I like to point out the top 5 oil companies in the U.S., they represent 80% of the market cap, but only a third of the production. The other 50 companies that represent the other 80% of the market cap is where all the growth is, and it's uneconomic. So what likely has to happen is you have to consolidate those companies. I like to point out when people make the point about the CEO confidence numbers being down, it's because there's too many old company CEOs versus the very few new company CEOs, and a lot of consolidation needs to happen on the old company.
It's my birthday, and Jeff Curry goes to the old CEOs at the old companies as well. Jeff, very quickly here on gold, Goldman Sachs talking about a lift. When do we see a lift on gold?
Well, we argue it's going to be real steady across the course of 2020. I think one of the biggest factors driving our bullish view is the de-dollarization. We're seeing that across the central bank. Particularly the emerging market central banks, they're physically buying gold. We expect 750 tons of physical gold buying in 2020, and that's going to be driven by de-dollarization.
Jeff, super smart. Always great to get your insight. Jeff Curry there, Goldman Sachs International Global Head of Commodities Research, particularly on that disconnect between what's happened with oil since 2015 and what's happening with energy equities as well.
Yeah, although I will say his point on gold is really important. And if you actually take a look at the gold buying by central banks, they've been buying nearly 20% of the world's gold supply, which is approaching the highest levels since the Nixon era. and they were net sellers from 1971 through 2010. So this is a complete reversal, as there is a focus on de-dollarization, and it's a big story.
Some incredible stats, and Jeff Curry sitting there nodding his head, nodding away to all of this. Jeff, it's great to see you. Let me get you up to speed on some of the price action ahead of a massive week this week. A Fed decision, an ECB call, the first meeting with President Lagarde, a British election, and a December 15th trade deadline. Ahead of all of that, we kick things off this Monday morning with equities down 2 points on the S&P 500. This is Bloomberg Radio.
If you say that you are mine, I'll be here till the end.
I've got to tell you about our beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. Next, we donned our skates for Bath on Ice. I'm a natural. Didn't have to hold on to anything. Or anyone. There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
I used to be a bit of a rubbish sleeper. I'd toss and turn all night, and somehow I could never find the comfy bit of the mattress. It was a proper nightmare. That's what brought me here, testing mattresses in the Which Test Lab. We use a custom-made barrel rolling machine to simulate a decade's worth of use. And the mattresses that perform best are the only ones we recommend for your bedroom.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Christmas. A time for celebrating, unwrapping and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6S with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
The Federal Reserve's independence is crucial.
Central banks should be prepared and not presumptuous.
Finance.
In order to grow, you need to innovate.
Global money doesn't like uncertainty.
Investment.
I think the issue in the market is really more about the possibility of a recession in the next couple of years.
I do think we need to get back to where we have always been, the American dream.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning, everyone, from our studios in London at Queen Victoria Street. I'm Tom Keene. John Farrow and Lisa Abramowitz in New York. An exceptionally busy news flow this week, any number of stories. But as we look forward, it's got to be about the British election. We'll get to that in a moment. Futures -2, Dow Futures -27, and the VIX 14.34. As always, in New York, in London and coast to coast, Bloomberg Surveillance, brought to you by Cohn Resnick. Planning a transaction. Turn your tax strategy into a competitive advantage. To learn how, visit Cohn Resnick's Capital Markets Tax Resource Center at cohnresnick.com/tax insight. John, a little bit on the election here on a Monday. It's marginal Monday. Now, Prime Minister Johnson is through the Watford Gap and up north to the Labour areas where he's trying to steal a few districts. And Mr. Corbyn is looking to Wales and other marginal districts. On election night, John, you're on at 10 p.m. election night, London time. It's really a battle district to district, isn't it?
It is. It's about these marginal seats. There were 51 seats in the 2017 election that have a majority of less than 2%. They are the seats in focus. And you find them in places like the north of the country. These are Labour-held constituencies that also voted Leave. This is where Conservatives think they can make some inroads, maybe get hold of some of these seats. It's like Wigan in the north. Then you've got these seats down in the south, the southeast, Tom. Conservative seats, but they voted Remain. You find a lot of these in places like, say, Kensington. The Lib Dems will look to make a mark here too. And it's these kind of balanced seats where we'll have a big focus on a Thursday night as the results from each and every individual constituency start to come through.
And for any of you interested in civics, it is stunning how different it is. There's actually a possibility, it's remote, that the Prime Minister could lose in his district to the very west of London. He only won that last time by 5,000 plus votes, the most narrow Prime Minister district win since 1924. I mean, John, it's not American, is it?
So this is his seat in Uxbridge, and for anyone interested in the history of this, I don't think this has happened since the early 1900s. And if he did lose his seat, but the Conservatives got a majority, there is still a road through which he can become the Prime Minister. He can make himself a lord and govern the party that way, lead the party that way, and ultimately become the Prime Minister. That's all the intricacies of this. I think, Tom, if he did lose his seat, there'd be a lot of pressure to find a new leader of the Conservative Party to become the Prime Minister.
Interesting. To give a better conversation on this, again, Lisa Bramwitz and John Farrow in New York, and I'm thrilled to be in London. John joining me later. He's got the Gulfstream over on Wednesday. Is Jacob van Kierkegaard. Jacob Kierkegaard, writing for Adam Posen's Peterson Institute, is absolutely exquisite on the synthesis of culture, politics, and economics within continental Europe. Jacob, we're thrilled to have you on today. What is the best British election outcome for Brussels?
I think it's a hung parliament. It's a parliament where Boris Johnson fails to get a majority, and the only thing that the other parties can agree on is to have a second referendum. Now, there are those who will say, well, actually, Brussels are more in favor of having Brexit happen, and therefore they would support Boris Johnson. But the reality is that, Brussels knows that if Boris Johnson wins, all we're looking at is probably another cliff edge by the end of the year and more uncertainty.
I know that Lisa and John have important direct questions. Let me give you a view from 60,000 feet question. Is Europe becoming institutionally more mature as we've gone in years from the advent of the ECB, as we move through the transitions in Strasbourg and Brussels? Is there a more institutionally confident Europe?
I think if you are talking strictly about the central bank, I certainly think that is the case. The ECB today is a very different animal than it was when Mario Draghi took over. When you're talking about the broader European institutions, I think it still is very much a work in progress. I think the process through which the president of the Commission, the president of the Council were selected earlier this year was a very messy one, and certainly not one that was particularly neither democratic nor transparent or, for that matter, mature. But if you're looking at the main economic policy-making institutions, yes, I think significant progress is being made.
When everyone talks about Brexit, they talk about exhaustion, and I wonder how that's going to play into turnout for the December 12th election. What do you think?
I think, yes. I think, look, Boris Johnson's main argument is get Brexit done. They have clearly focus grouped that. They have clearly, and it seems to be working. With regards to turnout, look, I think weather is going to be a big deal. If it is like Northern England and British weather can be, I think that'll be a significant dampener. There is a reason why it's been a very, very long time since the UK has had an election in December. So I think more than anything, that's probably a big one. But other than that, yes, exhaustion on Brexit and the failure, frankly, to date of Jeremy Corbyn in truly shifting the emphasis in the debates in the campaign onto his domestic issues that he would prefer to talk about rather than Brexit. He hasn't been able to change the narrative yet.
Well, Jacob, for our audience, there is a fascination with the next move in Brexit. And you touched on something really important. If the Prime Minister gets his majority back and manages to push through his breakup deal with the European Union, we're into the transition phase and we need to focus on the future relationship. It took 7 years for Canada and the EU to negotiate some kind of free trade agreement. The Prime Minister is looking to do something arguably far more comprehensive in the space of, 12 months, perhaps even less. How tough is next year going to be, Jacob?
Well, I think it's, unless Boris Johnson fundamentally does to the sort arch Brexiteers in his party what he did to the DUP, over Northern Ireland, which is stab them in the back, he's not going to have a deal by the end of the year. The only way he gets that is to, do what he did on Northern Ireland, which is give Brussels what it wants. That's what he did. That was the great leadership that he showed on this issue, so to speak. Otherwise, he's not going to have a deal. Because the more he diverges from, existing EU rules and regulations, the more complex this agreement is going to be, and the more time it's going to take. And now that he has boxed himself in by saying, I'm not going to ask for an extension of the transition period, he's got 11 months to do that. And as Phil Hogan, the new trade commissioner, said, we are in uncharted territories. We don't know how long this might take.
I look, Jacob, at all the study and all the time as well. What is the price to Europe of a dragged out Brexit? John Farrow tells me maybe they go to a referendum, maybe they actually get it done, but then starts a multi-year process. What does that mean for Europe?
No, look, it means Europe loses one of the largest economies. And by losing, if Boris Johnson goes ahead with his version of Brexit, which is a very hard Brexit, which sees the UK outside the internal market in both goods and services and the customs union, that means that Europe, quote unquote, also loses the UK in an economic sense. Certainly the loss in a political sense has arguably already happened. Even if, Boris Johnson, I think to many people's surprise, have actually aligned with Europe against the Trump administration on a number of issues on trade, the Iran nuclear deal, etc. But nonetheless, if this goes ahead, this is, it is a significant weakening of the European Union. That goes without question.
Jacob, thank you so much. Thrilled to have you on today. Wanted to get a Europe focus there on all that's going on in the United Kingdom. John, it's going to be sport, and what I find fascinating is the morning after, when you and I are in the green with our special coverage, the morning after and the path forward, you just wonder about how Europe will look at the United Kingdom.
Well, to Jacob's point, we might not be up the green on Friday morning. It's set to rain in London Thursday into Friday, Tom, and I just wonder how much weather will disrupt the turnout. That's going to be a key focus over the next couple of days.
Absurd that in 2019 the weather could disrupt elections, because honestly it's the same thing in the United States. But why can't people vote on their phones? I'm serious.
They can vote through the post. It just depends how you choose to vote.
To me, the fact that this is still such a big reason for people to turn out or not is just shocking.
I don't think many people listening will disagree with you. Equity futures are down this morning. We are down by 0.1% on the S&P 500. From the City of London and from our global headquarters here in New York City, you are listening to Bloomberg Surveillance. We are live on Bloomberg Radio.
Let's get the news in New York City. John Tucker. John.
And Lisa, the Justice Department's internal watchdog is set to dismiss one of the oldest conspiracy theories of Donald Trump's presidency, the accusation that the FBI illegally spied on his campaign. The report, expected to be issued today, concludes the FBI was justified in opening an investigation into Trump campaign officials before the 2016 election. House investigators give their closing summations today in the Democrats' case against President Donald Trump. It sets up an historic vote on impeachment in the full House later this month. And the FBI presumes a Florida attack by a Saudi Air Force officer that left 3 U.S. sailors dead was an act of terrorism. Republican lawmakers urged a suspension of training from foreign fighters in the U.S. as a result. Global news 24 hours a day on air and a quick take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm John Tucker. This is Bloomberg. Lisa.
Thank you so much, John. We are seeing a softer tone to markets ahead of the U.S. Open as people assess the idea of a trade deal, perhaps a little bit of uncertainty making its way. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Elite advisory firms rely on BNY Mellon's Pershing to meet the needs of their most complex clients. Karen Novak, Chief Operating Officer at Pershing Advisor Solutions, explains how.
At BNY Mellon's Pershing, we bring customized insights and strategies to help you grow your advisory business and stay on the leading edge. We can support the needs of your most sophisticated clients with a full range of investment and wealth management solutions, from access to private banking to consolidated bank and brokerage custody. Learn why so many of the largest advisory firms turn to us for the financial strength and high-touch service that BNY Mellon's Pershing can provide. Are you well positioned to stand out from your competition?
Learn more at Pershing.com or call 800-445-4467. Brokerage custody provided by Pershing LLC and other services provided by Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC. Both members of FINRA and SIPC. Private banking and bank custody provided by BNY Mellon NA. Member FDIC.
Sometimes in business, you have to take risks, but trading across borders and currencies shouldn't be one of them. With Western Union Business Solutions, we can help you manage the risk of doing business internationally. Our valuable experience, expert knowledge, and extensive global network makes us the ideal trusted partner for your business. And with our customer-focused support team, you'll receive a dedicated solution and personalized service. Visit westernunionbusiness.com. Western Union Business Solutions, a global financial network you can trust.
Tonight, it's West Ham v Arsenal in a huge London derby. And with Now TV, you can watch all the action live for a one-off payment of just $9.99. Hold on, they're checking with VAR.
That's confirmed, it's $9.99.
What a game changer. So, to only pay for the games that matter to you, grab a Now TV Sky Sports Day Pass. Search Now TV Sports. 18 plus, content streamed via internet, full terms apply.
What better way to celebrate the holidays than with a subscription to TuneIn Premium? With a bottomless library of the world's best audio, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Search Premium to upgrade today.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen and favorite ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
Here's Tom McKenzie.
Joining us is Higher Castle's Asset Management Managing Partner and Co-CIO Ziming Huang. It's been a good year for you. The Shanghai Composite is essentially flat since May. So where have most of your gains come from? Have they come from mainland? Have they come from ADRs? Or have they come from the H shares that you also invest in?
If you compare to the index, of course, it comes from single stocks. I would say majority of them comes from a couple names. One of them is industrial names and a couple consumer names in either A share and ADR. And I would say none of them comes from Hong Kong, unfortunately, because Hong Kong underperformed the market since the summer because of the chaos there.
Are you taking money off the table as we get closer potentially to a trade deal, or do you want to be putting more money to work at this point?
If we see a trade deal, then we probably want to sell a little bit because the easing expectation will diminish. But then we think we are bullish into next year overall, especially for first half. There are a couple elements that are overlooked by the markets. We think the strength of the manufacturing PMI and the stability of China property data were underappreciated by the market.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow, 8:17 on Wall Street. Futures this morning, little change to lower. We go to the First Word breaking news desk for today's morning call. Here's Bill Maloney. Bill, good morning.
And good morning, Karen. U.S. futures remain quiet since the last time we spoke, with Dow futures down 22 points, S&P's dropped 2, and NASDAQ futures fall by 8.5. The U.S. 10-year yield at 1.82%. Gold is up 4, and Shanghai was little changed overnight, while European markets are trading lower, led by losses in Italy. Back in the U.S., nothing to report on the economic front. And regarding earnings this morning, Thor Industries EPS missed estimates. In deal news, Merck is buying Arcul for more than $2 billion. Arcul is up 100% in the pre-market, and Sanofi bought Synthorex for $2.5 billion. In other news, utility PG&E agreed on a $13.5 billion settlement. Shares are up 21% in the pre-market, and Adobe's price target was raised to $410 over at Morgan Stanley. Wrapping things up, Chevron and 3M were both cut to neutral at Citigroup. Macy's was cut to sell at Goldman Sachs, and Tenet was raised to buy over at UBS. Live from the First Breaking News Desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Karen?
All right, Bill, thank you. To hear live breaking news over your Bloomberg, type squawk on your terminal, SQUAWK. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom, John, and Lisa.
Karen, thanks so much. Greatly appreciate that. Lisa Bremowitz and John Farrow in New York. I'm Tom Keene in London. John Farrow on the Gulfstream Wednesday to come over to drive forward our election coverage. And we'll have special coverage Thursday night, London time, as well. Right now, Simon Kennedy with us. He's our executive editor, but he's not really here for this. John, he's here for the M69 Derby. Okay, this is Coventry and Leicester and having to do with Nottingham, and this is the Midlands, isn't it, John?
That is the Midlands. Is that what he's really joining us on? I don't think he is. Are you sure?
He is as well.
He's joining us on the Derby on the M69.
Yeah, it's the Derby in the Midlands of this key marginal district of the Midlands. Simon Kennedy, your take, talking to David Merritt and others about the importance of the Midlands in this election.
Very important, very interesting. An area that certainly has some pro-Brexit in many ways. When you look at the industrial part of that region, the feeling that they're behind us. Well, further north you go, I grew up in Nottingham Gedling. That's currently a Labour seat.
Okay.
Where the MP is a former teacher of mine, and he might be vulnerable.
Simon, let's do this. I want you to move over to this chair here. We're having some technical difficulties. Okay, I guess go over to that chair over there. They're saying in New York. We're getting our technical difficulties.
We're enjoying this. We're really enjoying this, by the way. Just so that
there we go. You there, Simon? Go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
There we go. Very good.
We're live.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing.
Simon Kennedy with us, and it is live. And again, it's within Simon's busy day. What is executive editor and driving all of our economic coverage? What are you focused on? Is it trade, and is it December 15th?
I think so. This is obviously a huge week for the world economy. Everyone wants to get through this week, and then they can get on to their Christmas shopping. And so you've got the trade negotiators vying with the central bankers for attention. Jerome Powell sets interest rates Wednesday. Christine Lagarde makes her policy meeting debut as ECB president on Thursday. And that would typically be enough to keep investors and economists very happy. But on top of that, you've got these talks that are supposedly ongoing about trade. The December 15th, as you say, deadline looming for the imposition of tariffs on a whole range of Chinese goods by President Trump. I would think that the assumption of markets is that there'll be a delay or there'll be a deal, and that'll be that these won't be introduced. But who knows with this White House?
But let's review now. John Farrow, what did you learn from Lawrence Kudlow on Friday as we drive forward this conversation?
Not a lot, Tom, and that's the problem. Very little clarity on what has been agreed since October 11th. The president sat in the Oval Office and said that the Chinese would buy somewhere near $50 billion of ag products from the United States. And Simon, what we've heard subsequently through supports, not through official channels, granted, but through several reports suggesting that we're now struggling to agree on any kind of dollar amount whatsoever. Do we have any clarity on what has been agreed since October 11th when these two sides last had face-to-face talks?
So this is quite fascinating. When you look at that, you're right in identifying ag ag exports as the sticking point. The US, the kind of bastion of free markets for the best part of the last century, the US wants commitments. They want a kind of command state-run. They want China to set up to sign up to some specific commitments. China, on the other hand, the kind of the poster boy for state-run economies, command economies, they want the market to set the rate and the market to be more involved and to determine just the flow of agricultural produce around the world. So you have this kind of ironies that right at the last minute, both countries are kind of going against their traditional models in arguing what they want.
Simon, can you give us the headline of who's winning? We saw the data out of China showing that imports dropped and they had been expected to rise. We've seen that steadily. Both economies getting hurt by the ongoing trade skirmish. Who's getting hurt worse?
So I think probably to some extent, we looked at this a few months ago. It's China just narrowly needs the deal more than America. We have to be clear, though. This isn't whatever deal is struck this week, if at all. It's not the kind of silver bullet. It is very much a phase one. This is an attempt to tick off a few issues, kind of taking us back where we were 2017 almost. What remains in play are these kind of technological Cold War issues that both sides are going to have to duke it out in the coming years. This is very much a starter before the main course, really.
And we got to get to the main course. Simon Kennedy, thank you so much, our executive editor for so much of our economic and political coverage worldwide. And as Mr. Kennedy mentions, an extraordinarily busy week. John, I'm going to go back to the complete underestimation of the importance of Madame Lagarde's messaging. It, to me, is the non-story of the week that could be a big story.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Tom, we have to reflect on the fact that she is beginning a strategic review of monetary policy at the ECB, a review that hasn't taken place since the early 2000s, shortly after the euro was formed. And the focus of that, I think, has got to be how they define their interpretation of their mandate, price stability, what their inflation target will be, the tools through which they try and get there, and ultimately reflect on whether the policy tools they have deployed have worked. Are negative rates, Tom, still part of the future policy mix at the ECB under Christine Lagarde?
It will be interesting to see, to say the least. Again, the calendar, and I really want to focus now on the election coverage it will be having in London, the important ramifications for the United States as well. There will be 5 p.m. London time coverage. Mark that as 12 noon. Friday in New York, and then we go on to 5 p.m. coverage in New York, led by John Farrell, Guy Johnson, and Anna Edwards. That's really when the results heat up in the UK. This is Bloomberg. Good morning.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Indianapolis-based trucking giant Celadon has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Court documents show the company has an estimated liabilities of $500 million and as many as 10,000 creditors. The company is shutting down all of its business operations as of today. Last week, 2 former Celadon executives were indicted for fraud. T-Mobile heads to a federal courtroom today to defend its planned acquisition of Sprint against an effort by a group of states to block the deal. They say the $26.5 billion merger will mean higher prices for consumers. T-Mobile says that by combining with Sprint, it can reduce costs and lower consumer prices. The fast food chain White Castle is recalling some frozen burger products sold at retailers over concerns about the presence of listeria. The products involved have Best Buy dates ranging from August 4th of 2020 to August 17th of next year. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Hey, y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here. Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Something explosive is coming to the home of rugby.
When Harlequins meet Leicester Tigers, expect fireworks. With tickets from £17 children and £27 adults, Big Game 12 is more than a Gallagher Premiership rugby fixture. It's London's biggest rugby party. Enjoy music, entertainment and a truly incredible atmosphere before the big game kicks off at 4:30pm, Saturday 28th of December at Twickenham Stadium. Go to tickets.quins.co.uk or search Big Game 12.
So do you really think your party's manifesto is plausible, or is it just an election bribe?
Get an in-depth look at all the main party manifestos. From public services to immigration, the Times and the Sunday Times will guide you through. Pick up your copy today or visit thetimes.co.uk.
Sometimes in business, you have to take risks, but trading across borders and currencies shouldn't be one of them. With Western Union Business Solutions, we can help you manage the risk of doing business internationally. Our valuable experience, expert knowledge, and extensive global network makes us the ideal trusted partner for your business. And with our customer-focused support team, you'll receive a dedicated solution and personalized service. Visit westernunionbusiness.com. Western Union Business Solutions, a global financial network you can trust.
Dear Dad, Merry Christmas. Thank you for always doing everything you could to make this time of year special for us. No one has a Christmas jumper collection quite like yours. Your festive spirit is...
Gingerbread latte with 2 shots and nutmeg whipped cream for Joe.
I hope it snows. I know how you love a white Christmas. All my love, Joe. Heartfelt can happen anywhere with moonpig.com. Download the app and get 20% off when you buy a card and gift this Christmas. Use code Heartfelt20. Exclusions apply.
This is someone making an online booking at Ford.co.uk using the words Ford20 so they can service their Ford for £20 less. And this is someone who didn't get their Ford serviced. You see, at Ford, we use Ford genuine parts and Ford trained technicians. Plus, if you quote Ford20 when you book with us online, you can receive £20 off. Book now at Ford.co.uk or visit your local participating dealer. Ford service. No one knows your Ford better.
Retail customers only. At participating Ford dealers. Cannot be used with other promotions. T's and C's apply. Search Ford Service for more information.
What better way to celebrate the holidays than with a subscription to TuneIn Premium? With a bottomless library of the world's best audio, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Search Premium to upgrade today.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
From New York City, this is Bloomberg Surveillance. For our audience worldwide, we're live on a Bloomberg Radio. What a week ahead we've got for you. Ahead of all of that this Monday morning, equity futures rolling over 3 points on the S&P 500, down by around about 0.1%. A lot coming up through the week. Your data will be brought to you by Commonwealth Financial Network. For the 6th straight time, JD Power ranks Commonwealth #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms. Visit Commonwealth.com to learn more, including a Fed decision this Wednesday, an ECB decision coming up on Thursday, and a big trade deadline coming up on Sunday as well. And in between all of that, sprinkled in between, we get some decent amount of economic data in America, including U.S. retail sales, Lisa, coming up this Friday.
Yeah, it's a lot of data. The question is, how should traders position ahead of that? Constance Hunter joining us now, KPMG chief economist and NABE president. Constance, I'm wondering right now, the market's really ratcheting back expectations of even a 2020 rate cut, which had been basically a given before we got the better jobs data as well as a slew of other things. What do you think the Fed's really going to be signaling as far as their 2020 rate expectations this Wednesday?
I mean, I think it's going to be more of the same. And I think one of the things that they have stuck to throughout the entire period where they have been hiking rates, and certainly since Jay Powell became president, is this idea of symmetry. And I think this means that it is possible the Fed's reaction function and their tolerance for growth where we have inflation above the 2% target is higher than probably market participants expect. And so when we see a jobs data like this, people tend to anchor to that and say, well, now they're not going to cut in 2020. I'm not so sure that that's the case. 1 month's job data does not a trend make. And so while that was extremely encouraging, I think we need to wait and see what happens over the next several months. But it's really, I think people anchor to the most recent data, and that's what we're seeing in the market.
Okay, so if that means that you do expect another rate cut in 2020, what's the threshold? What's the tipping point for the Fed to have an additional cut here after a series of strong data? It's not just the retail sales; it's home sales. It's a number of other things too.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I think one of the main reasons that they cut was weakness abroad seeping into the U.S. economy. Of course, the U.S. dollar and dollar funding is the primary engine for liquidity globally. And so by cutting rates, the Fed not only improved liquidity conditions at home, they improved liquidity conditions globally. And of course, that had a feed-through loop. So I think it depends not just what's happening here, but how the feed-through of the global economy is going to impact the U.S. economy.
What drives a path from 1.7, 1.8, subpar, negative 2%, below 2% GDP, out to something decent, call it 2.5%? What's the thingy that gets us there? Is it investment? Is it NX? Is it consumption?
So I don't think that anybody is forecasting negative 2%. So if we look at this most recent survey, the very weakest forecast we have is 0.1% for the whole of 2020. And when we work with our models and shock them, it's very hard to get it to have 2 quarters of negative growth. Yeah. And it's really, we're talking about 0.9 or 0.5. So again, it's really important people not anchor to the global financial crisis and think about where we are now. And you brought up the consumer. The consumer is extremely healthy, especially compared to the previous recession. Yeah. And I think the pain points are around corporate investment and productivity, because the consumer has been the backbone of the expansion. And what is lacking and what we need to maintain future growth is to increase productivity.
Well, this is important. And folks, I misspoke there. I didn't mean negative 2%. I meant below 2%, small difference. Constance, this is really important. Does productivity lead growth, or does better growth lead to better productivity?
You have asked the most important question.
It's existential.
Yeah, well, and both are correct, right? So when we have better growth, we see more investment. More investment tends to lead to future productivity. But if there were some nice, neat formula that we could all just plug into our policy toolbox and voila, we bake a productivity cake, then Japan would have already done this, right? But it's not so straightforward, and it is an existential question in a way. But they do feed back onto each other. So obviously, more productivity allows us to get more growth, and more growth encourages firms to make more investment, which usually leads